My name is Gabriel Martinez, and today I'm going to tell you about the moment God spoke words that shattered my need to carry the weight of the world. Words that revealed I'd been trying to hold everything together when He'd already been holding it all along. Before I continue, I want to ask you something. If you're exhausted from trying to keep everything together, if you feel like everything depends on you, please subscribe to this channel and share this with someone who's carrying too much. And in the comments below, tell me what burden you're trying to hold alone. Your story matters, and you're not meant to carry it by yourself. I was 35 years old when the weight of holding everything together nearly crushed me. Not the normal kind of responsibility or healthy leadership, the kind where I believed that if I didn't personally ensure every outcome, everything would fall apart. I was a civil engineer in Denver, managing a construction company my father had built and handed to me when he retired. 20 employees depended on me for their livelihoods. Projects worth millions depended on my oversight. My family's legacy depended on my success. But more than that, I'd taken on responsibility for everything and everyone in my life. My younger sister, Anna, was struggling financially. I paid her rent. My mother was aging and needed help. I handled all her appointments, finances, and care. My wife, Carmen, worked full-time, but I felt responsible for ensuring our household ran smoothly. Our 2 kids, Miguel, 8, and Isabella, 6, needed everything children need, and I felt it was my job to provide, protect, and ensure their perfect development. At work, I didn't just manage, I controlled. Every decision, every detail, every problem had to go through me. I didn't delegate because I was convinced no one else could do things right. If a project succeeded, it was because I'd overseen every aspect. If something went wrong, it was because I hadn't been involved enough. Gabriel, you need to let your project managers actually manage. My business partner Luis told me repeatedly, you're micromanaging everything. It's unsustainable. Someone has to ensure things are done right. These projects are worth millions. I can't just hope people do their jobs. You hired competent people, trust them. I do trust them. I just need to verify everything. But I didn't trust them. I didn't trust anyone. I believed everything depended on me personally holding it together. At home, Carmen was frustrated. Gabriel, I can handle the kids' schedules. I can manage the household. You don't have to control everything. I'm not controlling. I'm helping. You're not helping. You're taking over. Last night you redid the dishes I'd washed because they weren't clean enough. This morning you reorganized the kids' backpacks because I'd done it wrong. I feel like you don't trust me with anything. I trust you. I just want things done properly. Your version of properly, your standards, your way. Gabriel, you're exhausting yourself and everyone around you trying to hold everything together. She was right, but I couldn't see it. In my mind, I was being responsible, dependable, ensuring nothing fell through the cracks. I thought I was holding everything together through diligence. I didn't realize I was suffocating everyone with my need for control. The physical toll was severe. I slept 4 to 5 hours a night. There weren't enough hours to handle everything I thought needed my attention. Constant headaches, acid reflux, muscle tension that wouldn't release. I was 35. But felt 50. Your blood pressure is dangerously high, my doctor warned. And you're showing signs of chronic stress. Elevated cortisol, poor sleep, digestive issues. You're heading for a heart attack or stroke if you don't change something. I'll reduce my workload. You've been saying that for 2 years. What's going to be different this time? Nothing, because I believed I couldn't reduce my workload. Too many people depended on me. Too much would fall apart if I wasn't holding it together. The breaking point came on a Tuesday afternoon. I was at a construction site, managing 3 concurrent problems: a permitting issue, a supply delivery delay, and a worker injury. While handling those, I got calls about my mother, fallen at home, my sister, car broken down, couldn't get to work, and my son's school, he'd been in a fight. I tried to handle everything simultaneously, called my mother's neighbor to check on her while talking to the city inspector, arranged a tow truck for Anna while discussing the worker injury with our safety manager, tried to handle Miguel's school situation while coordinating with suppliers, and then I just stopped. Physically couldn't move. My chest tightened, couldn't breathe, vision narrowed. I was having a panic attack, something I'd never experienced before. One of my workers found me sitting on the ground, hyperventilating, tears streaming down my face. "Boss? Boss, are you okay? Should I call 911? I couldn't respond, couldn't speak, just sat there overwhelmed by the crushing weight of trying to hold everything together. The ER confirmed it was a severe panic attack, not a heart attack, but the doctor's words were sobering. Your body is telling you something. You can't sustain the stress level you're operating under. Something has to change, or next time it might actually be your heart. Carmen picked me up from the ER. We drove home in silence. When we got inside and the kids were in bed, she finally spoke. "Gabriel, you have to stop. You're killing yourself trying to hold everything together. But everything is my responsibility. If I don't handle it, who will? Other people, me, your employees, your sister, your mother's caregivers, God. Everyone you've taken responsibility for has to learn to carry their own weight. And you have to learn that you're not Atlas. You're not meant to hold up the world. I'm just being responsible. No, you're being controlling. And it's destroying you and our marriage and your relationships with everyone. The kids are afraid to ask you for anything because you turn every request into a project you have to manage. Your employees resent you. Your sister feels like a failure because you won't let her struggle or learn. Your mother has caregivers, but you micromanage them. Gabriel, you're holding everything so tightly that you're crushing all of it." Her words hit like physical blows. Was she right? Was my need to hold everything together actually damaging what I was trying to protect? That night I couldn't sleep. I lay awake thinking about every responsibility, every person depending on me, everything I was trying to hold together, and I felt the crushing weight of it all. Not a metaphor, actual physical sensation of weight pressing down on my chest, making it hard to breathe. At 2 a.m. I got up and drove to the church I'd attended growing up. I hadn't been in years, too busy, too many responsibilities, but I needed something, space, silence, help. The church was dark but unlocked. I walked into the sanctuary and sat in a back pew, surrounded by silence, and I broke. All the weight I'd been carrying, all the stress of trying to hold everything together, all the exhaustion of believing everything depended on me. It came pouring out. God, I can't do this anymore. I'm so tired. I'm holding everything together. My business, my family, my mother, my sister, everyone and everything, and I'm failing. I can't keep up. I can't manage it all. I'm exhausting myself and everyone around me trying to be responsible for everything. I don't know how to let go. I don't know how to not hold it all, but I'm drowning under the weight of trying. I sat there crying, feeling completely broken and overwhelmed by the impossibility of what I'd been attempting, to personally hold together every aspect of my life and everyone else's. And then, in the quietest, most unexpected way, I heard something that stopped my spiraling completely, not audibly, but with absolute clarity in my spirit. Words so simple, so profound, so liberating that they cut through every burden I'd been carrying. You don't need to hold everything. I have already held it. I froze. The words settled over me like a weight being lifted. You don't need to hold everything. I have already held it. I'd been trying to hold everything together through my own strength, my own control, my own constant vigilance, believing that if I didn't personally manage every detail, everything would fall apart. But God was saying He'd already been holding it, not He would hold it if I let go. He was already holding it, had been all along. While I exhausted myself trying to hold everything, God had already been holding it all. But God, I whispered, if I don't hold everything together, it will fall apart. People depend on me. And I heard it again, even clearer. You don't need to hold everything. I have already held it. Your job isn't to hold everything together. Your job is to trust that I already am. Let go of what you were never meant to carry. I sat with those words for a long time. My whole life, I'd believed being responsible meant personally controlling every outcome. that if I didn't hold everything together through constant vigilance and management, everything would collapse. But God was offering something radically different. He'd already been holding everything: the business, my family, my mother, my sister, the projects, the problems, all of it. He'd been holding it while I exhausted myself trying to do His job. When I finally stood to leave, it was nearly dawn. I felt different. Not like every problem was solved or every burden lifted, but like I'd been given permission to stop trying to carry what I was never meant to hold. Driving home, I thought about what God had said. You don't need to hold everything. I have already held it. That meant my frantic attempts to control everything weren't just exhausting, they were unnecessary. God had it, had always had it. I pulled out my phone and started making notes. Things I've been trying to hold that God's already holding: business outcomes, employees' performance, mother's health, Anna's financial struggles, Carmen's household management, kids' development, project success, everything. The list was overwhelming. I'd taken responsibility for controlling outcomes I'd never actually had control over. At home, Carmen was awake, worried. Where have you been? Church. I needed to pray. At 2 a.m. I couldn't sleep. The weight of everything. Carmen, I think you're right. I've been trying to hold everything together, control everything, and it's destroying me. She sat beside me. What changed? I heard from God. He told me I don't need to hold everything because He's already holding it. I've been exhausting myself trying to do a job that's not mine. What does that mean, practically? I don't know yet, but I think it means learning to let go, to trust, to stop trying to control every outcome, to recognize that I'm not responsible for holding the entire world together. That's going to be hard for you. I know, but I can't keep living like this. I'm going to have to learn what it means to let God hold what He's already holding. I started journaling that morning. God told me, I don't need to hold everything because He's already holding it. This is going to require complete transformation of how I approach everything. I've built my entire identity around being the person who holds everything together. What does it look like to let go, to trust that God's already holding what I've been trying to hold? I don't have answers yet, but I know I can't continue as I have been. Something has to change. God, teach me what it means to let You hold everything while I simply do what I'm actually called to do. That simple prayer, God, teach me, was the beginning of everything. I didn't know it yet, but those words God spoke in a dark sanctuary would transform not just my life, but everything and everyone connected to it. You don't need to hold everything. I have already held it. The truth I'd been missing my entire life. The freedom I'd been desperate for without knowing it existed. The beginning of learning that being responsible doesn't mean controlling everything. It means trusting the one who does. The week after hearing God's voice, I faced the hardest challenge of my life, actually letting go of what I'd been desperately trying to hold together. I started with the easiest thing, or what I thought would be easiest. At work Monday morning, I called a meeting with my 3 project managers. I need to make some changes, I told them. I've been micromanaging everything, not trusting you to do your jobs. I'm going to step back and let you actually manage your projects. They looked at each other, clearly skeptical. They'd heard this before. What does that actually mean? Asked James, my most senior manager. It means you make decisions without running everything by me first. You handle problems. You manage your teams. I'll be available for consultation, but I'm not going to be involved in every detail anymore. For how long? Sarah asked. Last time you said this, you lasted 3 days before you were back to checking everything. She was right. I'd tried delegating before, but my anxiety about outcomes always pulled me back into controlling everything. This time is different. I had a wake-up call. I can't keep trying to hold everything together. I have to trust that you're competent at your jobs, which you are, and let you do them. What changed? James asked. I realized I've been trying to hold everything when God's already holding it. I know that sounds religious, but it's true. I've been exhausting myself trying to control outcomes I was never meant to control. Over the next few days, I practiced not intervening. A supplier issue came up on James's project. I didn't step in. Sarah made a scheduling decision I wouldn't have made. I didn't override it. A client complained about materials. I let the appropriate manager handle it. Each time I didn't intervene, I felt intense anxiety. What if they handle it wrong? What if the project fails? What if I should have stepped in? But each time I'd pray, God, you said I don't need to hold everything because you've already held it. Help me trust that. Help me let go. By Friday, I was a wreck. The anxiety of not controlling everything was almost worse than the exhaustion of trying to control it all. How's the delegation going? Carmen asked that evening. Terrible. I'm anxious constantly. Every time I don't step in, I'm convinced disaster is imminent. But has disaster happened? Well, no. James handled the supplier issue well. Sarah's scheduling is working. But what if... Gabriel, stop. What if is anxiety, not reality? You're so used to controlling everything that not controlling feels like everything's falling apart. But it's not. It's just you feeling anxious about not being in control. She was right. The projects weren't falling apart. I was just experiencing withdrawal from control. At home, letting go was even harder. Carmen had been handling household management for years, but I'd been second-guessing and redoing everything she did. I'm going to stop micromanaging the house, I told her. You handle the kids' schedules, the household tasks, everything. I trust you. I've been asking you to do that for 5 years. I know, I'm sorry. I've been acting like you're incompetent when actually I'm the one who's been unable to trust. The first week, I had to physically restrain myself from intervening. Carmen packed the kids' lunches differently than I would have. I didn't comment. She handled Miguel's homework her way. I didn't take over. She scheduled Isabella's activities without consulting me. I didn't object. Each time, I felt the urge to step in, to correct, to ensure it was done right. But I'd remember, you don't need to hold everything. I have already held it. My mother was another challenge. I'd been managing every aspect of her life: finances, appointments, caregivers, household maintenance. Mom, I've been taking over your life. I need to step back. What do you mean? I've been managing everything for you as if you're incapable. But you're 72, not 92. You can manage your own life with some support, not with me controlling everything. Gabriel, I appreciate your help. It's not help, it's control. I need to let you handle your own life. I'll be available if you need me, but I'm not going to manage everything anymore. She looked hurt. You're abandoning me? No, Mom. I'm respecting you as an adult capable of managing her own life. That's different from abandonment. It was hard for both of us. She'd become accustomed to me handling everything. I'd become accustomed to believing she needed me to. But I had to let go, for both our sakes. Anna, my sister, was perhaps the hardest. I'd been financially supporting her for 3 years, paying her rent, covering her expenses, rescuing her from every financial crisis. Anna, I need to talk to you about money. Oh no, are you cutting me off? Not cutting you off, but I can't keep paying your rent indefinitely. You need to find a way to support yourself. Why, but I can't afford my rent. You know I'm barely making it. Then you need to move somewhere cheaper, get a second job, make changes. I've been enabling you to avoid those hard choices by constantly rescuing you. That's not helping you. It's keeping you dependent. She was furious. I can't believe you're doing this. I'm your sister. And because you're my sister, I need to let you grow up. I've been holding you up financially when I should have been letting you learn to stand on your own. Some support, that is. I thought family was supposed to help each other. Help, yes. Enable, no. I'll give you 3 months' notice. That gives you time to figure things out. But I can't keep trying to hold your life together when you need to learn to hold it yourself. The conversation destroyed our relationship temporarily. She stopped speaking to me. My mother sided with her, saying I was being cruel. But I knew, painfully, that I'd been doing her a disservice by never letting her experience consequences or develop resilience. My attempts to hold her life together had kept her from learning to hold it herself. At therapy, something Carmen insisted I start, my new therapist, Dr. Rodriguez, helped me understand the patterns. You're what we call a super responsible person. You've taken on responsibility not just for yourself, but for everyone and everything around you. It's a form of control and often stems from anxiety. But someone has to be responsible. Responsible, yes. Super responsible, no. There's a difference between healthy responsibility, doing your job well, caring for your family, being reliable, and unhealthy over-responsibility, believing you're personally responsible for controlling every outcome for everyone. How do I tell the difference? Ask yourself, is this mine to hold, or am I taking on something that belongs to someone else, their choices, their consequences, their growth, their relationship with God? That question became my measuring stick. Is this mine to hold, my employees' performance? Not mine to hold, theirs. My job was to hire well, provide resources and trust. Carmen's household management? Not mine to hold, hers. My job was to be a partner, not a supervisor. My mother's daily life? Not mine to hold, hers. My job was to support, not control. Anna's financial stability? Not mine to hold, hers. My job was to love her, not rescue her from every consequence. My kids' success and happiness? Partially mine to hold, but not entirely. My job was to parent well, not to control every outcome. Project outcomes? Partially mine, but not entirely. My job was to manage well, but I couldn't control every variable. God showed me I'd been trying to hold things that were His to hold, other people's to hold, or simply beyond anyone's control. And in trying to hold everything, I'd been holding nothing well. At church, I started attending regularly again. The pastor preached on Matthew 11:28, "Come to me, all who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest." Some of you, he said, are weary because you're carrying burdens you were never meant to carry. God didn't design you to hold everything. He designed you to trust the one who does hold everything. After the service, I spoke with Pastor David. God told me a couple weeks ago that I don't need to hold everything because He's already holding it. But I don't know how to actually live that way. It's a daily practice. Every time you feel yourself trying to hold something, you have to pause and ask, is this mine to hold or is it God's? And if it's God's, you practice releasing it to Him. How do you release something to God? Literally pray and open your hands. Say, God, I'm trying to hold this, but it's yours. I'm giving it to you. Help me trust that you're already holding it. The physical act of opening your hands helps your brain understand you're releasing control. I started practicing this. Multiple times a day, I'd feel myself trying to hold something, a project outcome, a family situation, a problem that wasn't mine to solve, and I'd physically open my hands and pray, God, I'm trying to hold this, but you've already got it. Help me trust you. It felt strange at first, but gradually I noticed a difference. The constant tension in my shoulders began to ease. The headaches became less frequent. I slept better. Carmen noticed the change. You seem different, less tense. I'm practicing letting go. It's harder than I thought, but I'm learning. What does that look like practically? Like yesterday when Miguel didn't finish his homework. My instinct was to take over, ensure it got done. But I asked myself, is this mine to hold? And the answer was no, it's Miguel's homework. So I let him experience the consequence of turning it in incomplete. That must have been hard for you. Excruciating. But he learned more from experiencing the consequence than he would have from me rescuing him. That's what God's been teaching me. Sometimes the most loving thing is letting go, letting people experience consequences, letting God hold what I've been trying to hold. At work, the results of letting go were surprising. Projects didn't fall apart. In fact, they ran more smoothly. My managers made good decisions, sometimes better than I would have made. Problems got solved without my involvement. The business thrived without me micromanaging every detail. James told me, "This is the best you've ever been as a leader. You're actually leading now, instead of doing everyone's job for them. We feel trusted, empowered. It's transforming the team culture." I thought if I wasn't holding everything together, everything would fall apart. But that was never true. You hired competent people. You built good systems. The business doesn't need you to hold it together. It needs you to lead it. Those are different things. His words showed me something profound. In trying to hold everything together, I'd actually been preventing things from being held well. My control had been constraint, not support. My oversight had been suffocation, not safety. God hadn't just been holding everything despite my frantic attempts to control. He'd been holding everything in spite of them. My letting go wasn't releasing things into chaos. It was finally getting out of the way, so God could do what he'd been doing all along. 2 months after hearing God's voice, Anna called me, still angry, but also desperate. My rent is due in 2 weeks and I can't make it. Can you help? Every instinct wanted to rescue her, to pay her rent, to solve her problem, to hold her life together one more time. But I asked myself, is this mine to hold? No, Anna. I told you I wouldn't keep paying your rent. You need to figure this out. I'm going to be homeless. You're okay with that? I'm not okay with it, but it's your situation to navigate. You have options. Roommates, cheaper apartment, second job, asking your boyfriend to contribute more. You're capable of solving this. I've been keeping you from learning that by always rescuing you. She hung up on me. My mother called an hour later, furious. How can you let your sister become homeless? I'm not letting her become homeless. I'm letting her face the consequences of her choices, so she learns to make better ones. Mom, I've been enabling her for 3 years. That's not love. It's preventing her from growing up. You used to be so caring. What happened to you? I'm still caring, but I'm learning that true care sometimes means letting people struggle, letting God hold them instead of trying to do it myself. She didn't understand, but I was beginning to. Love didn't mean preventing all struggle. Sometimes love meant allowing natural consequences so people learned and grew. Anna figured it out. She moved in with her boyfriend, got a second job, and started managing her own finances. She was still angry with me, but she was also more self-sufficient than she'd been in years. At home, the transformation in my relationship with Carmen was remarkable. Without me micromanaging everything, she flourished. She reorganized the house more efficiently than I ever had. She handled the kids' schedules brilliantly. She managed household finances well. I didn't realize how much I'd been undermining you, I told her one evening. You're incredibly capable. I just never let you show it. I've been trying to tell you that for years. You were so busy, trying to hold everything that you couldn't see. I was already holding my part just fine. I'm sorry, for years of not trusting you, for making you feel incompetent, for trying to control everything. I forgive you. But Gabriel, you need to keep practicing letting go. I see you starting to slip back into old patterns sometimes. She was right. It was daily work. Every day, multiple times, I had to consciously choose to not try to hold what God was already holding. I wrote in my journal 3 months after hearing God's voice. Learning to let go is the hardest thing I've ever done. My entire identity was built around being the person who holds everything together. Letting go feels like irresponsibility, like abandoning people, like everything will fall apart. But I'm discovering the opposite is true. In letting go of what was never mine to hold, I'm finally able to hold well what actually is mine. My marriage is better. My relationships with my kids are better. My business is thriving. My health is improving. All because I stopped trying to do God's job and started trusting that He's already doing it. You don't need to hold everything. I have already held it. That truth is transforming my life. The anxiety didn't disappear, but it became manageable. Because every time I felt the urge to control, to manage, to hold everything together, I had a truth to return to. God's already got this. I don't need to hold everything. He's already holding it. And slowly, that truth was setting me free. 6 months after God spoke to me, I faced a crisis that would test whether I truly believed He was holding everything, or whether I'd just been managing anxiety better. Luis, my business partner of 10 years, came to my office with devastating news. Gabriel, I need to tell you something. I've been offered a position in Seattle. It's an incredible opportunity. I'm taking it. I felt my chest tighten immediately. Luis leaving meant I'd be running the company alone. He handled all the financial management, client relations, and half the operational oversight. How could I possibly manage everything without him? When? I managed to ask. I've given you 3 months' notice. I know this is huge, but Gabriel, this is my dream job. I can't pass it up. After he left, I sat in my office feeling the familiar weight pressing down. This was it. I'd have to hold everything together alone now. All the progress I'd made in learning to let go felt meaningless in the face of this crisis. I called Carmen, panicking. Luis is leaving. I'm going to have to run everything alone. I can't do this. I've been barely managing to let go of control, and now I'm going to have to hold everything again. Gabriel, stop, breathe. This is exactly what God's been teaching you about. You don't have to hold everything. He's already holding it. But this is different. This is my business possibly failing without Luis. Is the business yours to hold alone, or is it God's to hold? Her question stopped my spiraling. Was I going to trust what God had taught me, or revert to old patterns the moment things got difficult? That evening, I went to the church, my regular refuge now when anxiety threatened to overwhelm. I sat in the same pew where God had first spoken to me 6 months ago. God, I'm terrified. Luis leaving feels like everything's falling apart. I've been learning to let go, to trust you're holding everything. But now I'm being tested. How do I not try to hold everything when my business partner is abandoning me? I sat in the silence, waiting, and gradually I felt peace, not the absence of anxiety, but the presence of God underneath it. And I heard clearly, you don't need to hold everything. I have already held it, including Luis leaving, including your business, including what comes next. Trust me, but what if the business fails? Then I'll hold you through that too. Your worth isn't in successfully holding everything together. It's in trusting that I already am. Over the next few days, I had a choice to make. I could panic, try to control every aspect of the transition, micromanage everything to prevent disaster, or I could trust that God was holding this situation like he held everything else. I chose trust. Imperfectly, anxiously, but intentionally. First, I met with Luis and had an honest conversation. I'm scared about you leaving. I'm going to have to trust that God's holding this business in ways I can't. But I want this transition to be good for both of us. How can we make that happen? His relief was visible. I was worried you'd make this difficult. Thank you for being gracious. I'm trying to practice what I've been learning, that I don't have to hold everything. God's got this, even when it feels terrifying to me. We developed a transition plan. Luis would train someone to take over his responsibilities. We'd hire a financial manager and a client relations specialist. The company would restructure rather than me trying to do everything he'd been doing. You're not trying to replace me alone, Luis observed. You're redistributing my responsibilities across multiple people. That's smart. It's what I should have been doing all along, trusting other people to hold things instead of believing everything depends on me. The hiring process was anxiety-inducing. What if I hired wrong? What if the new people couldn't do what Luis did? What if this destroyed the business? Each time the anxiety spiked, I'd practice what Pastor David taught me. I'd physically open my hands and pray, God, I'm trying to hold this hiring process, these outcomes, this business. But you've already got it. Help me trust you. It became a daily, sometimes hourly practice. At home, Carmen noticed when I started slipping back into old control patterns. You're micromanaging the kids again. I saw you redo Isabella's hair this morning after I'd already done it. I just wanted it to look nice. Gabriel, this is stress response. When you're anxious about work, you try to control home. We've talked about this. She was right. I apologized to Isabella for implying her mum hadn't done her hair well enough and recommitted to letting Carmen handle parenting without my interference. Dr. Rodriguez helped me understand what was happening. Crisis triggers your old patterns. Under stress, you default to what's familiar, trying to hold everything. You have to consciously choose the new pattern, trusting God's already holding it. But it feels irresponsible, like I'm being passive when I should be active. There's a difference between active trust and passive avoidance. Active trust means you do your part, hire well, manage responsibly, work diligently, while trusting God with outcomes you can't control. Passive avoidance means you check out and ignore problems. You're not doing that. You're working hard while releasing control over results. That's active trust. So, I can be responsible without trying to control everything? Exactly. You've confused responsibility with control. But they're different. Responsibility is doing your part well. Control is trying to guarantee specific outcomes. You can be responsible without being controlling. That distinction was transformative. I could work hard, hire well, manage effectively, and still trust God with outcomes I couldn't control. Responsibility didn't require control. The new hires started during Luis's final month. Jennifer took over financial management. Marcus handled client relations. I was terrified neither would measure up to Luis, but I had to trust, had to believe God was holding this transition, even when I couldn't see how it would work out. Luis's last day was emotional. He'd been my partner for 10 years. We'd built this company together, and now I was moving forward without him. "You're going to be fine," he told me. "Actually, I think you're going to be better than fine. You've changed so much in the past 6 months. You're not trying to hold everything anymore. That's going to make you a better leader without me than you were with me." I'm terrified. I know, but I've watched you learn to trust God with things you used to try to control. Keep doing that. The business doesn't need you to hold it together. It needs you to lead while God holds it together. The first month without Luis was incredibly hard. I wanted to check every financial decision Jennifer made, second-guess every client interaction Marcus handled, take over everything to ensure it was done right. But every time I'd ask, is this mine to hold? Jennifer's financial decisions, not mine to hold, hers. My job was to trust the competent person I'd hired. Marcus's client relationships, not mine to hold, his. My job was to support, not micromanage, business outcomes, partially mine through good leadership, but ultimately God's to hold. 3 months after Luis left, I reviewed the financials with Jennifer. The business was not just surviving, it was thriving. Revenue was up, client satisfaction was higher, employee morale had improved. How? I asked, genuinely confused. I thought without Luis everything would fall apart. Jennifer smiled. You let us do our jobs. You're leading instead of controlling. You're trusting instead of micromanaging. Gabriel, you're a much better CEO when you're not trying to do everyone's job for them. But I'm doing less than I used to. Exactly. You're doing your actual job, leading, visioning, strategic planning. You're not trying to hold everything together anymore. And ironically, that's making everything work better. Her words revealed something I'd been learning. My attempts to hold everything together had actually been preventing things from being held well. In letting go, in trusting God and other people, I was finally allowing the business to function as it should. At church, Pastor David asked me to share my testimony about learning to let go. Standing before the congregation, I felt both nervous and grateful. 6 months ago, I had a panic attack trying to hold everything together. My business, my family, my mother, my sister, everything. I was exhausting myself and everyone around me trying to be Atlas, holding up the world. Then God spoke words that changed my life. You don't need to hold everything. I have already held it. I shared about learning to let go, about Luis leaving, about the fear that everything would fall apart if I wasn't controlling everything. But here's what I've discovered. God really has been holding everything all along. My frantic attempts to control weren't helping. They were interfering. When I let go, when I trusted God was already holding what I'd been trying to hold, everything actually got better. My business is thriving. My marriage is healthier. My relationships with my kids are deeper. My stress is manageable. Not because problems disappeared, but because I stopped trying to hold what God was already holding. After the service, dozens of people approached me. Most shared their own struggles with trying to hold everything together. One woman said through tears, "I'm a single mum working 2 jobs, trying to hold everything together for my kids. I'm exhausted. Hearing you say God's already holding it, I needed that. I've been trying to do God's job." A business owner shared, "I micromanage everything in my company because I'm convinced it'll fail without my constant involvement. But I'm destroying my health and my employees' morale. You've shown me I need to learn to let go." An elderly man said, "I'm 75 and I'm still trying to fix all my adult children's problems. Your testimony helped me see I'm trying to hold things that are theirs to hold, not mine. Thank you." Their stories reminded me how universal this struggle was. So many people exhausting themselves, trying to hold everything, not realizing God was already holding it all. At home, Miguel was struggling in math. My old instinct was to take over, ensure he understood every concept, manage his homework, guarantee his success. But I asked, is this mine to hold? Miguel's math performance was his to hold with appropriate support. My job was to be available, to help when asked, to arrange tutoring if needed, but not to take ownership of his learning. "Miguel, I see you're struggling with math. How can I support you?" "I don't know. It's hard. Would a tutor help? Or should we talk to your teacher about extra help?" "Maybe a tutor." I arranged tutoring, but didn't take over his homework, didn't hover over every assignment, didn't try to ensure specific grades. I supported, but I didn't try to hold his educational success. It was hard, but I was learning that true support looked different than control, that helping wasn't the same as holding. Isabella had anxiety about an upcoming school presentation. Carmen wanted to help her practice, but Isabella was resistant. My old response would have been to force practice, to manage her preparation, to ensure she was ready. But I'd been learning from my own anxiety journey that sometimes the best help is allowing natural consequences. "Isabella, Mom's offering to help you practice. That's loving support. But whether you accept it is your choice. Just know that if you don't practice and the presentation is hard, that's a natural consequence of your choice. But what if I do bad? Then you'll learn something about preparation, and that's valuable learning." She chose to practice with Carmen, and the presentation went well, but more importantly, she'd made her own choice and experienced the positive outcome of preparation. "I'm learning from you," Carmen told me later. "You used to control everything with the kids. Now you're letting them make choices and experience consequences. It's teaching them responsibility in a way your control never did." God's been teaching me that holding everything for people prevents them from learning to hold things themselves. I was robbing our kids of important learning by always holding everything for them. 6 months after Luis left, the business had its best quarter ever. Not because I was working harder or controlling more, because I'd finally learned to lead while trusting God to hold what only He could hold. I wrote in my journal, 9 months since God told me I don't need to hold everything because He's already holding it. This has been the most transformative truth of my life. I'm not perfect at it. I still try to control things sometimes. But I'm learning. Learning that God's already holding it isn't future tense. It's present reality. He's not going to hold it if I let go. He's already holding it right now, whether I let go or not. My letting go isn't releasing things to Him. It's finally acknowledging what's always been true. And that acknowledgement, that trust, that letting go, it's given me more peace, health, and effectiveness than all my years of frantic control ever did. The anxiety about holding everything was being replaced with trust that God already was. Not perfectly, not without struggle, but progressively. And in that trust, I was discovering freedom I'd never known existed. 1 year after God spoke to me, I faced a test that would reveal whether I'd truly learned to trust Him with holding everything, or whether I'd simply become better at managing my control issues in comfortable circumstances. Carmen was offered a promotion at her hospital, director of nursing, significant salary increase, meaningful leadership opportunity. But it required working longer hours, occasional weekends, and taking on major responsibilities. When she told me about the offer, my immediate internal response was panic. If she worked more, I'd have to do more at home. Her longer hours meant less control over household management. Her increased responsibility meant I couldn't rely on her availability like before. Every controlling instinct screamed, "Tell her not to take it. Convince her the family needs her home more. Ensure things stay manageable." But I caught myself. I'd been learning for a year that trying to hold everything meant controlling people and outcomes to serve my comfort. Was I going to let Carmen flourish, even if it meant less convenience for me? "What do you want to do?" I asked her. "I want to take it. It's everything I've worked toward, but I'm worried about the family, about you, about how we'll manage with both of us working demanding jobs." "We'll figure it out. This is your dream job. You should take it." "Gabriel, are you sure? I know your instinct is to control household management. My longer hours mean you'll have to truly share that responsibility, not just permit me to handle it." She was right. This wasn't just about her career. It was about whether I'd truly let go of trying to hold everything at home. "I'm sure. Take the job. We'll adjust. God's holding our family. I don't have to." She accepted the position. And suddenly, my year of learning to let go faced its biggest practical test. Carmen's new schedule meant I had to handle morning routines twice a week, pack lunches, manage homework, do dinner, handle bedtime. All the things I'd been permitting Carmen to manage, while maintaining my illusion of control. The first morning I was in charge, everything went wrong. Miguel couldn't find his homework. Isabella didn't like the breakfast I made. Both kids were late for school because I didn't know their morning routine well enough. At work that day, I was frustrated and anxious. How was this going to work long term? How could I manage my demanding job while actually parenting instead of just overseeing? That evening I prayed, "God, this is hard. Carmen working more means I can't control how home is managed anymore. I have to actually share the load, not just supervise it. Help me trust that you're holding our family, even when I'm not managing everything." Dr. Rodriguez helped me process the adjustment. "You're experiencing what Carmen's been experiencing for years, the challenge of balancing career and home. But you're also facing your control issues head-on. You can't control household management from work. You have to actually trust the process. I don't know how to parent without trying to control everything. Learn. You've been learning to let go at work. Now you're learning to let go at home. Not by checking out, but by being present without controlling. There's a difference between engaged parenting and controlling parenting. What does engaged without controlling look like? It looks like doing your part, providing food, ensuring safety, being emotionally available, without trying to dictate every detail of how things happen. Miguel doesn't need you to control his homework process. He needs you to be available if he needs help. Isabella doesn't need you to manage her friendships. She needs you to listen when she wants to talk. Engaged without controlling means supporting, not managing. Over the following weeks, I learned to parent rather than manage. The house didn't run as smoothly as when Carmen was home more. The kids were sometimes late. Homework sometimes wasn't perfect. Dinners were simpler. But we were okay. Actually, more than okay. The kids started coming to me with problems because I wasn't trying to control their solutions anymore. I was just listening, supporting, being present. Miguel shared one evening, "Dad, I like it better when you just help instead of taking over." "What do you mean?" "Before, when I had a problem, you'd fix it for me. Now you ask me what I think I should do. It makes me feel like you trust me." His words hit hard. My controlling had communicated distrust. My letting go was communicating confidence in him. At work, the business continued thriving. Jennifer and Marcus had fully stepped into their roles. My project managers were handling increasingly complex situations without my involvement. But I noticed something troubling. When things went too well, I felt anxious, like I should be doing more, controlling more, involved in more details. "Why do I feel anxious when things are going well?" I asked Dr. Rodriguez. "Because control gave you the illusion of security. When you're not controlling, you feel vulnerable even when things are actually fine. Your brain interprets not controlling as not safe, regardless of actual outcomes. So, I'm addicted to control. In a way, yes. The behavior pattern is deeply ingrained. You have to consciously remind yourself, things going well without my control proves I don't need to control, not that I should be controlling more. He was right. I had to actively remind myself that the business thriving without my micromanagement was evidence that God was holding it, not evidence that I should interfere. Anna, my sister, reached out after months of silence. I need to talk. We met for coffee. She was still upset about me cutting off financial support, but she was also different, more confident, more self-sufficient. I was so angry at you, she said. But you were right. I needed to figure my life out instead of depending on you to rescue me constantly. How are you doing? Good, actually. I got promoted at work, moved to a better apartment I can afford. Started therapy to deal with why I'd been so financially irresponsible. Gabriel, you forcing me to hold my own life was the hardest gift anyone's ever given me. I'm proud of you. I understand now what you were doing. You weren't abandoning me. You were refusing to hold something that was mine to hold. You let God hold me instead of trying to do it yourself. Her transformation was evidence of something I'd been learning. Sometimes love means not holding things for people. Sometimes love means trusting God to hold them while they learn to hold their own responsibilities. My mother apologized around the same time. I was wrong to be angry at you for how you handled Anna. You did the right thing, even when it looked harsh. I was enabling her too. We both were. Thanks, Mom. I know it seemed cruel. It wasn't cruel. It was loving in a way I didn't understand. You've changed so much this past year, Gabriel. You used to try to hold everything for everyone. Now you're letting people hold their own things. It's healthier. God's been teaching me I can't hold everything. He's already holding it. My job is to do my part and trust him with the rest. Carmen's career flourished. She was brilliant in her new role, innovative, compassionate, strategic. Watching her thrive in work she loved was beautiful, even when it meant adjustments at home. Thank you for supporting this, she told me one evening. I know it's been hard for you. Less control over home management, more actual parenting responsibility. It's been good for me. I needed to learn to actually share the load instead of just supervising your management of it. You've changed so much. A year ago, you would have subtly sabotaged this opportunity because it threatened your control. Now you're celebrating it even though it means less convenience for you. I'm trying to apply what I've been learning. Your career isn't mine to hold. It's yours and God's. My job is to support you, not control you. The kids adjusted to our new rhythm. They learned resilience and flexibility. They discovered both parents could handle things differently but equally well. They saw what partnership actually looked like instead of one parent managing and the other parent being managed. At church, I joined a men's group focused on faith and work. Many of the men struggled with similar issues, trying to hold everything, feeling responsible for outcomes they couldn't control, exhausting themselves trying to be everything to everyone. How did you learn to let go? One man asked me. My business is consuming me. I can't delegate because I'm convinced no one can do things as well as I can. I had to hit bottom. Panic attack, health crisis, nearly losing my marriage. That desperation forced me to hear God. He told me I don't need to hold everything because He's already holding it. That truth has transformed how I approach everything. But doesn't letting go mean things will fall apart? That's what I thought. But the opposite happened. When I stopped trying to hold everything, people stepped up. The business improved. My relationships deepened. Turns out my holding everything was actually preventing things from being held well. Another man shared, I'm trying to control my adult son's life. He's making choices I don't agree with, and I keep trying to fix things for him. But it's destroying our relationship. Is your son's life yours to hold? No, but I'm his father. Being a father doesn't mean holding your adult child's life. It means loving him, supporting him, and trusting God to hold him. You can't control his choices. You can only control your response to them. These conversations reminded me how universal this struggle was. So many people, especially men, especially leaders, trying to hold everything, exhausting themselves, damaging relationships, living with constant anxiety about outcomes they couldn't actually control. One evening, Miguel came to me crying. He'd failed a test he'd studied hard for. My old response would have been to take over, analyze what went wrong, create a study plan, ensure it never happened again. Basically, try to hold his academic success. But I asked, is this mine to hold? I'm sorry, buddy. That must feel really disappointing. I studied so hard. I don't understand why I failed. Sometimes we work hard and still don't get the outcome we want. That's frustrating. What do you think you should do? I don't know. You tell me. This is your test, your grade, your learning. What do you think would help? He thought about it. Maybe I could ask my teacher to explain what I missed and study differently next time. Those sound like good ideas. Do you want my help, or do you want to handle it? I'll handle it. But can you check that I actually talk to my teacher? Sure, I'll check in, but this is yours to manage. After he left, Carmen said, that was hard for you. I could see you wanting to take over. It was excruciating. But Miguel needs to learn to hold his own academic success. My hovering and controlling doesn't teach him that. It teaches him to depend on me to manage his life. You're becoming the father our kids need, instead of the manager you've been. Her words captured the transformation. I was learning to be present without controlling, to support without taking over, to love without trying to hold everything for everyone. At work, we faced a major crisis. A large project had significant cost overruns. The client was threatening to sue. The entire project was at risk. Old Gabriel would have panicked, taken over everything, tried to control every aspect of damage control and resolution. New Gabriel asked, is this mine to hold alone? I gathered my team. We have a crisis. I need everyone's input on how to handle this. I'm not going to try to solve it alone. We brainstormed solutions. Jennifer analyzed the financial options. Marcus negotiated with the client. The project managers developed remediation plans. I facilitated and guided, but didn't take over. You're leading differently, James observed. You're not trying to control the solution. You're trusting us to solve this together. Because I finally learned that holding everything alone doesn't work. We're better together. The crisis resolved. Not perfectly. We took a financial hit. But the relationship with the client remained intact. The team felt empowered rather than managed. And I didn't have a panic attack trying to control every aspect of it. A year ago, this crisis would have destroyed me, I told Carmen. I would have tried to hold every detail, control every outcome, ensure perfect resolution. Instead, I trusted my team and trusted God, and we got through it. How did it feel? Scary, vulnerable, but also freeing. I did my part, led well, facilitated solutions, supported the team, but I didn't try to hold the entire crisis alone. And that made all the difference. I wrote in my journal, 1 year since God told me I don't need to hold everything because He's already holding it. This year has transformed my life. I've learned to let go at work, at home, with extended family, in crisis, in success. I've learned that my job isn't to hold everything. It's to do my part well, while trusting God holds what only He can hold. I'm not perfect at it. I still try to control things sometimes. But the trajectory is clear. I'm learning to live with open hands instead of clenched fists, to trust instead of control, to support instead of manage, to do my part while letting God do His. And that's given me peace I never thought possible. 1 year after learning I didn't need to hold everything, I was finally beginning to live like I believed it. 3 years after God spoke to me, I faced the most devastating test of whether I truly believed He was holding everything. A test that would strip away every illusion of control I still maintained. It started with a phone call on a Tuesday morning. Carmen, who'd left for work an hour earlier, was calling from the hospital. "Gabriel, I need you to come here now. Something's wrong." Her voice had a quality I'd never heard before. Controlled panic. As an ER nurse, Carmen dealt with crises daily. For her to sound that scared meant something was very wrong. "What happened?" "Just come. Please, I'm in the ER." I dropped everything and drove to the hospital, my mind racing through every catastrophic possibility. By the time I arrived, I'd convinced myself she was dying. I found her sitting in an exam room, pale and shaking. Dr. Simmons, the ER attending, was with her. "What's going on?" I demanded. Dr. Simmons spoke gently. "Gabriel, Carmen had a seizure at work this morning. We've run preliminary tests. There's a mass in her brain. We need more imaging to determine what it is, but we're concerned it could be a tumor." The words didn't make sense. Tumor, brain, Carmen, my wife who'd been perfectly healthy yesterday. "How big?" I asked, slipping into my analytical mode. "Approximately 4 centimeters. Location suggests it's been growing for some time. We're scheduling an MRI for this afternoon." Carmen reached for my hand. "Gabriel, I'm scared." And in that moment, every instinct I'd spent 3 years learning to overcome came roaring back. I wanted to hold this, fix this, control this, research every option, demand the best care, ensure perfect outcome, hold Carmen's life together through sheer force of will. But I couldn't. This was utterly beyond my control. No amount of management, research, or force of will could change whatever was growing in my wife's brain. The MRI confirmed a brain tumor, likely glioblastoma, an aggressive cancer with poor prognosis. The neurosurgeon explained the treatment plan: immediate surgery to remove as much as possible, then radiation and chemotherapy. "What's the survival rate?" I asked, needing data, statistics, something concrete to analyze. 5-year survival for glioblastoma is approximately 10%, but every case is different. Let's take this one step at a time. 10%. My wife had a 90% chance of dying within 5 years. That night, after the kids were asleep, Carmen and I held each other and cried. "I don't want to die," she sobbed. "Miguel and Isabella are so young. I want to see them grow up. I want to grow old with you. We don't know for sure it's glioblastoma. It could be something more treatable. Gabriel, don't try to control this with optimistic possibilities. We need to face reality." She was right. My instinct was to manage this situation by controlling the narrative, finding the most hopeful interpretation, ensuring we didn't think about worst-case scenarios. But this wasn't mine to control. It was Carmen's tumor, Carmen's life, Carmen's journey, and God's to hold. "I'm terrified," I admitted. "I want to fix this, to research everything, to ensure you survive, but I can't control this." "No, you can't. And I need you to be present with me in the fear, not trying to manage it away." "How do I do that? How do I not try to hold this when it's your life?" "Remember what God told you. You don't need to hold everything. He's already holding it. That includes my tumor, my treatment, my life. Whatever happens, God's holding it." Hearing her quote back to me what I'd been learning for 3 years was both comforting and devastating. She was right, but could I actually trust it when the stakes were this high? The biopsy after surgery confirmed glioblastoma. Stage 4. Aggressive. The surgeon had removed 85% of the tumor, but the remaining 15% was inoperable due to location. "We'll start radiation and chemotherapy immediately," the oncologist explained. "The goal is to slow progression and extend quality life." "Extend? You mean cure, right?" "Gabriel," Carmen said gently, "she means extend. This isn't curable. We're fighting for time, not cure." I wanted to argue, to demand they try harder, to research experimental treatments, to hold her life through sheer determination. But Carmen knew her own diagnosis. As a nurse, she understood the realities, and she was asking me not to try to manage her acceptance of those realities. At home, we had to tell Miguel, 11, and Isabella, 9. How do you tell children their mother has terminal cancer? "Kids, we need to talk about something serious," Carmen started, her voice steady despite everything. "I have cancer in my brain. The doctors are treating it, but it's very serious." "Are you going to die?" Miguel asked bluntly. "Eventually, yes. This kind of cancer doesn't have a cure, but the treatment might give me more time, maybe a lot more time. We don't know exactly how long." Isabella started crying. "I don't want you to die, Mommy." "I know, baby, I don't want to die either, but we're going to trust God with my life, just like we trust Him with everything else." After the kids went to bed, I found myself in our bedroom, alone, completely overwhelmed. Every cell in my body was screaming to take control, to research, to find solutions, to hold Carmen's life together through force of will. But I couldn't. This was utterly, completely beyond my control. I drove to the church, my refuge for 3 years now, sat in the adoration chapel, and I broke completely. God, I can't do this. I can't watch Carmen die. I can't lose her. I've spent 3 years learning that I don't need to hold everything because you're already holding it. But this, how am I supposed to trust you're holding this when my wife is dying, when my kids might lose their mother, when everything I love is at risk? I sat in the silence, crying, desperate for answers that didn't come. And then, so quietly, I heard what God had told me 3 years ago. You don't need to hold everything. I have already held it. But I need Carmen to live. I need her not to have cancer. How is this you holding anything? And I felt clearly, I'm holding Carmen. I'm holding her life, her treatment, her remaining time, her eternity. I'm holding your kids through this. I'm holding you through this. I'm holding all of it, not by preventing the cancer, by being present in it. Your job isn't to hold her life. It's to love her, support her, and trust me with what only I can hold. I don't know how to do that. You've been practicing for 3 years. Trust me now when it costs you everything. Dr. Rodriguez helped me process the crisis. This is your greatest fear realized. Someone you love suffering, possibly dying, and you being unable to control it. I want to fix this. Research everything. Find the miracle cure. Hold her life through determination. But you can't. And trying to will only rob you of being present with Carmen in the time you have. Your job isn't to hold her life. God's doing that. Your job is to love her well through whatever time she has. What does that look like? It looks like being present instead of managing, listening instead of researching solutions, crying with her instead of staying strong, letting her lead this journey instead of trying to control it, supporting her choices instead of imposing yours. It was the hardest thing I'd ever been asked to do, to not try to hold Carmen's life when it was slipping away, to trust God was holding what I desperately wanted to control. Carmen started treatment. Radiation every day, chemotherapy every 3 weeks. The side effects were brutal: nausea, exhaustion, hair loss, cognitive changes. I wanted to manage everything, control her medication schedule, research every option, ensure perfect compliance with treatment, hold her health together through meticulous management. But Carmen stopped me. Gabriel, I need you to be my husband, not my case manager. I have doctors managing my treatment. I need you to just be present with me. I'm trying to help. You're trying to control. There's a difference. Help would be holding me when I'm scared. Control is creating spreadsheets for my medication schedule without asking if I want that. She was right. Even in crisis, I was defaulting to my old pattern, trying to hold everything through control. But she needed presence, not management. I started practicing radical presence, sitting with her during chemo without my laptop, holding her when she cried without trying to fix her emotions, listening to her fears without offering solutions. It was excruciating. My entire being wanted to do something, fix something, control something, but she needed me to just be with her. The kids struggled intensely. Miguel became angry at the cancer, at God, at the unfairness. Isabella became clingy, terrified every time Carmen left the house that she'd never come back. My instinct was to manage their emotions, ensure they processed correctly, hold their healing together through perfect parenting. But Dr. Rodriguez reminded me, their grief isn't yours to hold. Your job is to be present, to provide safety, to feel their feelings, not to control how they process. So I let Miguel be angry, didn't try to fix it or redirect it, just created space for his rage. I let Isabella be scared, didn't try to promise everything would be okay. Just held her when the fear was overwhelming. It violated everything in me that wanted to hold their emotional well-being together. But I was learning that holding people's emotions for them prevented them from learning to hold their own feelings. At work, I had to step back significantly. I couldn't manage the business while Carmen was in treatment and our family was in crisis. I need you all to step up, I told my team. Carmen's sick. I'm going to be gone a lot. The business is yours to hold right now, Jennifer said gently. Gabriel, you've spent 3 years teaching us to hold things ourselves. We've got this. Take care of your family. The business continued, without me managing every detail, because I'd spent 3 years building systems and empowering people instead of trying to hold everything myself. 3 months into treatment, Carmen had a seizure, another tumor growth. The treatment wasn't working as well as hoped. The oncologist adjusted the treatment plan, but her tone was somber. We're looking at months, not years. I'm sorry. That night, Carmen and I had the conversation we'd been avoiding. I need to know you're going to be okay when I'm gone, she said. Don't talk like that. You might beat this. Gabriel, stop. I'm dying. We need to face that. And I need to know you're not going to try to hold everything together alone after I'm gone. Promise me you'll let people help, that you'll trust God, that you won't revert to trying to control everything. I can't promise that. I don't know how to live without you. You don't have to know how. God knows how. He'll hold you through it like he's holding me through this. But you have to let him. Promise me you won't try to hold everything alone. I promise. I'll try. Not try. Promise. I promise. We started having intentional conversations. Carmen made videos for the kids, messages for birthdays, graduations, weddings they'd experienced without her. She wrote letters. She planned. And I had to let her. Had to not try to manage her end-of-life preparations. Had to trust she knew what she needed to do. The support group at church rallied around us. Meals, childcare, prayer, presence, tangible evidence that God was holding us through community, not just supernatural intervention. Pastor David visited regularly. How are you holding up? I'm not. I'm barely functioning, but I'm also weirdly at peace sometimes. Not peace about Carmen dying, peace that God's with us in this, that he's holding what I can't. That's mature faith. Peace alongside devastation, trust alongside grief. You're living what you've been learning. 6 months after diagnosis, Carmen was hospitalized. The tumor had grown significantly. Her cognitive function was declining. The seizures were more frequent. We're transitioning to comfort care, the palliative care doctor explained. We're done with aggressive treatment. Now we focus on quality of remaining time. I wanted to fight it. To demand they keep trying, to hold her life through refusing to accept death. But Carmen was clear. I'm ready. I don't want more treatment. I want whatever time I have left to be peaceful, not filled with side effects from treatments that won't work. I'm not ready for you to die. I know. But this isn't about what you're ready for. It's about what I need, and I need you to support my choices, not try to hold my life through forced optimism about treatments. She was right. Again, her death wasn't mine to manage. It was hers to experience and God's to hold. We brought Carmen home with hospice. The kids said goodbye in their own ways. Miguel, angry and broken, finally cried in her arms. Isabella climbed into bed with her and didn't leave for hours. Take care of Daddy, Carmen told them. He's going to try to hold everything together after I'm gone. Don't let him. Make him ask for help. Make him trust God. Even dying, she was worried about my tendency to try to control everything. Carmen died on a Wednesday evening, 3 days after coming home. The kids were at school. It was just her and me. I love you, she whispered, barely conscious. Don't try to hold everything. Let God hold you. I love you too. I'll try. Not try. Let him. Those were her last words. She slipped into unconsciousness and died an hour later, and I was left with a choice. Would I try to hold everything? My grief, the kids' grief, the household, the business, everything, or would I trust that God was holding us? The first weeks after Carmen died were a blur. Funeral arrangements, visitors, casseroles, the kids in shock, me barely functioning. Every instinct screamed to hold everything together, to manage the kids' grief, to ensure I appeared strong. to control every aspect of our moving forward. But I remembered Carmen's last words: don't try to hold everything, let God hold you. So I let people help, let friends provide meals instead of insisting I could manage cooking, let my team run the business without my involvement. Let the kids' teachers and counselors support them instead of believing only I could help them process. It felt like failure, like I was abandoning my responsibilities, like everything would fall apart because I wasn't holding it together. But it didn't fall apart. God held it. Through community, through systems I'd built, through his supernatural presence in our grief. Miguel's anger intensified after Carmen died. He blamed God, blamed me, blamed himself. I wanted to manage his anger, ensure he processed healthily, hold his healing together. But his grief counselor told me, let him be angry. Anger is part of grief. Your job isn't to fix it, it's to provide safe space for it. Isabella regressed, nightmares, bedwetting, clinginess. I wanted to solve each problem, ensure she healed quickly, hold her recovery together. But her therapist said, she's processing trauma. These are normal responses. You're holding her through it. Looks like presence and patience, not management and solutions. I was learning, in the worst possible way, what it meant to not hold everything, to be present without managing, to support without controlling, to trust God was holding what I couldn't. 3 months after Carmen died, I was at the church late at night, sitting in the same pew where God had first spoken to me years ago. God, I'm so angry at you. You told me you're holding everything, but you let Carmen die. You let my kids lose their mother. Where's your holding in that? And I heard, clear as I'd ever heard. I held her through every moment. I held her in suffering. I held her in death. I'm holding her now in eternity. And I'm holding you through this grief. I'm holding your kids through their loss. I'm holding everything you can't hold. You don't see it yet, but I am. It doesn't feel like you're holding anything. It feels like everything's fallen apart because you're measuring my holding by outcomes you wanted, but I'm holding you through outcomes you wouldn't have chosen. That's what it means to trust me with everything, trusting I'm holding it, even when I'm not holding it the way you'd hold it. Those words broke something in me. I'd been trusting God to hold everything as long as the outcomes matched what I wanted. But real trust meant trusting him, even when outcomes were devastating. I wrote in my journal that night, 3 years since God told me I don't need to hold everything because he's already holding it. I thought I'd learned to trust that truth. But Carmen's death tested whether I truly believed it, and I'm discovering I do. Not because I understand why he allowed her to die, not because I think this outcome is good, but because I've seen him hold us through the worst thing that's ever happened. He didn't prevent her cancer, but he was present in it. He didn't stop her death, but he held her through it. He's not removing our grief, but he's holding us in it. That's what it means for him to hold everything, not controlling outcomes to match my preferences, but being present in all outcomes with sustaining grace. 6 months after Carmen died, the kids and I were beginning to find a new rhythm, not healed, healing, not okay, surviving, but held. By God, by community, by grace we didn't manufacture ourselves. And I was learning the deepest truth of what God had spoken years ago. You don't need to hold everything. I have already held it. Even, especially when holding it meant being present in devastation I wouldn't have chosen. That was trust. That was surrender. That was finally, fully letting go of the illusion that I could hold anything apart from God's grace. Carmen's death had stripped away every remaining illusion of control, and in that stripping, I discovered God really was holding everything, just not the way I would have, but better, more fully, more eternally. I didn't need to hold everything. He had already held it, even her death, even our grief, everything. 5 years after God spoke to me, and 2 years after Carmen died, I stood at another crossroads that would test everything I'd learned about letting God hold what I couldn't. Isabella, now 11, had developed severe anxiety and depression following her mother's death. Despite therapy, despite medication, despite my best efforts to support her, she was getting worse, not better. Her therapist recommended residential treatment, 6 months away from home, intensive therapy, structured environment, to help her heal from the trauma of losing Carmen. Absolutely not, was my immediate response. She's 11. She needs to be home. I can't send my daughter away. Gabriel, Dr. Chen said gently, Isabella isn't getting better with outpatient care. She's having suicidal ideation. She needs more intensive help than we can provide while she's at home. Then I'll do more at home. I'll manage her schedule better, ensure she takes her medication, monitor her more closely. That's exactly the problem. You're trying to hold her mental health together through management. But she needs professional intervention you can't provide. The conversation with Miguel, now 13, was even harder. You're sending Izzy away? He asked, angry. First Mom dies, now you're abandoning Izzy? I'm not abandoning her. I'm getting her help. No, by sending her away for 6 months, that's abandoning her, Dad. Just like you're abandoning me by always being at work or at church or wherever you go instead of being home. His words hit like physical blows. Was he right? Had I been abandoning them while thinking I was holding everything together? That night, I sat in my bedroom, still our bedroom, even though Carmen had been gone 2 years, and broke down completely. God, I can't do this. I've tried so hard to hold everything together after Carmen died, to be both parents, to keep the household running, to support the kids, but I'm failing. Isabella's suicidal. Miguel thinks I'm abandoning them. I don't know what to do anymore. And I heard, so clearly, you're still trying to hold everything, but you don't need to. I have already held it, including Isabella's healing, including Miguel's anger, including your inadequacy as a single parent. Let go, Gabriel. Trust me with your children. But what if residential treatment traumatizes her more? What if she thinks I'm abandoning her like Miguel said? Then I'll hold her through that too. Your job isn't to prevent all pain, it's to get her the help she needs and trust me with the outcomes. I called Dr. Chen back the next morning. Okay, let's do residential treatment, but I need help explaining this to Isabella in a way that doesn't feel like abandonment. Dr. Chen came to our house for a family session. Isabella, Miguel, and I sat together as she explained. Isabella, your dad and I think you need more help than we can give you at home. There's a place that specializes in helping kids who are struggling like you are. It's not punishment. It's intensive care for your mind and heart. You're sending me away, Isabella said flatly, because I'm too broken to fix. No, baby, I said, kneeling in front of her. You're not broken, but you're hurting in ways I don't know how to help. This place has people who know how to help. I'm not abandoning you. I'm getting you what you need. But I'll be there 6 months. That's forever. I know it feels that way, but I'll visit every week. We'll talk on the phone every day, and when you come home, you'll be healthier. That's worth 6 months apart. Miguel stormed out of the room. This is bullshit. You're giving up on her. Later, I found him in his room. I'm not giving up on her. Yes, you are, just like you've given up on me. Ever since Mom died, you've been so busy trying to hold everything together that you haven't actually been present for either of us. What do you mean? You manage us, Dad. You don't parent us. You make sure we eat and do homework and go to therapy, but you don't actually see us. You're so worried about holding everything together that you miss actually being with us. His words were devastating because they were true. I'd been trying so hard to hold everything, their schedules, their healing, their lives, that I'd forgotten to just be their father. You're right. I'm sorry. I've been managing you instead of being present with you. I don't need you to manage me. I need you to notice that I'm struggling too, that I'm angry and sad and I miss Mom and I don't know how to deal with any of it. But you're so focused on Izzy that you don't see me. I see you, Miguel. And you're right, you're struggling too. I've been so focused on Isabella's obvious crisis that I've missed yours. I'm not going to kill myself like Izzy talks about, but I'm not okay either. I know, and I'm here, not to manage you, to actually be present with you. We sat together in silence, and for the first time in months, I wasn't trying to fix or manage or hold his emotions. I was just present with him in his pain. Isabella entered residential treatment a week later. Watching her walk into that facility, knowing I wouldn't see her for a week, was one of the hardest moments of my life. Every instinct screamed that I was failing her, that I should be able to hold her healing together at home, that sending her away was abandonment, but I had to trust that God was holding her, that this was what she needed, that my job was to support her treatment, not try to manage it from outside. The first few weeks were brutal. Isabella called crying, begging to come home. "Please, Dad, I hate it here. Please come get me." "I know it's hard, baby, but you need to give it a chance. The people there can help you. You don't love me anymore. If you loved me, you'd bring me home." Those words haunted me, but Dr. Chen reminded me, "She's testing whether you'll hold the boundary. If you pull her out every time she's uncomfortable, she'll never heal. Your love is shown by keeping her in treatment, not by rescuing her from it." With Isabella away, I had to face Miguel's needs more directly. We started having weekly dinners, just the two of us. No agenda, no management, just being together. "I'm angry at Mum for dying," he admitted one evening. "Is that wrong?" "No. Anger is part of grief. But I'm also angry at you, for how you've been since she died. Tell me. You turned into this robot, managing everything, controlling everything, making sure everything ran smoothly, but you stopped being Dad. You became this manager of our lives instead of our father. I was trying to hold everything together after we lost her. But we didn't need you to hold everything together. We needed you to fall apart with us, to cry with us, to admit you didn't know what you were doing. Instead, you pretended like if you just managed everything perfectly, we'd be okay. But we're not okay. And your managing didn't fix that." His words shattered me. He was right. I'd reverted to my old pattern, trying to hold everything through control. I'd thought I was being strong for them, but I'd been emotionally absent while physically present. "I'm sorry. You're right. I've been managing you instead of being with you. I don't need you to be perfect, Dad. I need you to be real, to admit you're struggling too, to cry sometimes, to not have all the answers." That conversation changed something. I stopped trying to appear strong, stopped managing emotions, mine or his, started being honest about my own grief, my own struggles, my own inadequacy. "I miss Mum," I told him one evening, crying. "I don't know how to do this without her." "Me neither," he said, crying with me. We sat together in shared grief, not managing it, not fixing it, just experiencing it together. At work, the business continued thriving despite my reduced involvement. Jennifer and Marcus had fully stepped into leadership. They made major decisions without me. The company had grown significantly. "You built something that doesn't need you to micromanage it," Jennifer told me. "That's the sign of great leadership, systems and people that function without constant intervention." I used to think being essential meant being involved in everything. Now I see that was ego, not leadership. At church, Pastor David and I had regular coffee meetings. "How are you really doing?" "I'm failing at everything. Isabella's in residential treatment. Miguel's angry. I'm barely keeping work together. I feel like I'm drowning." "But you're not trying to hold everything anymore, are you?" "No, I literally can't. It's too much. I have to trust God's holding it because I'm completely incapable of holding any of it." That's not failure, Gabriel. That's surrender. And surrender is where God works most powerfully. It doesn't feel powerful. It feels like everything's falling apart. Maybe everything needed to fall apart so God could rebuild it His way instead of your way. His words hit me. I'd been trying to rebuild our life after Carmen's death in my image, controlled, managed, held together by my efforts, but God was dismantling that so He could build something held by Him, not by me. Visiting Isabella weekly was both beautiful and painful. She was making progress, facing her trauma, developing coping skills, learning to manage her emotions. "I understand now why you sent me here," she told me during one visit. "I needed this. I couldn't heal at home. I'm sorry it felt like abandonment. It did at first, but my therapist helped me see you sent me here because you love me, not because you don't. How are you really doing?" "Better. Still sad, still miss Mum. but I'm learning that I can feel sad without wanting to die. That's progress. I'm proud of you. I'm proud of you too, Dad. My therapist says you're doing something really hard, letting go of trying to fix me. She says most parents can't do that. It's been the hardest thing I've ever done, letting you be here instead of trying to manage your healing at home. That's what I needed, though. You managing me was part of the problem. I needed space to heal without you trying to control it. Her words confirmed what I'd been learning. Sometimes love means not holding things. Sometimes love means trusting God to hold what you can't. Miguel started seeing a new therapist who specialized in adolescent grief. After the first session, he came home different. She's good, Dad. She actually gets it. I'm glad. She says I've been carrying a lot of anger because I felt like I had to be the strong one after Mum died and Izzy fell apart. Like I couldn't show my pain because you were busy managing Izzy. I'm sorry I made you feel that way. She also says you're getting better, that you're actually being present now instead of managing. I'm trying. Letting go of control is daily work. I see that, and it helps. Knowing you're struggling too makes me feel less alone. 6 months after Isabella entered treatment, she came home, changed, healthier, still grieving Carmen but managing her emotions better. It's weird being home, she said the first night. Everything's the same, but I'm different. How are you different? I'm not trying to hold everything together anymore. At treatment, they taught me that my job is to feel my feelings, not manage them. That God holds my healing, not me. Her words reflected back what I'd been learning. We were both discovering that we didn't need to hold everything. The first few weeks of Isabella being home were an adjustment. She'd grown more independent, had boundaries she hadn't had before, knew what she needed in ways she hadn't before. Dad, I need you to stop hovering, she told me one evening. I know you're worried I'll relapse, but your constant checking is making me anxious. I'm just trying to make sure you're okay. I know, but you're trying to hold my mental health. That's my job with my therapist and doctor. Your job is to be my dad, not my case manager. She was right. Again, I was defaulting to management instead of presence. You're right, I'm sorry. Old habits. I get it, but I need you to trust that I can manage myself now, that God's holding my healing, not you. At work, I made a significant decision. I stepped down as CEO, promoted Jennifer to the role. I would stay on as founder and consultant, but day-to-day leadership was hers. Are you sure? She asked. You built this company, and now it needs leadership that's fully present. I need to focus on my kids. They need me present, not managing them from a distance while trying to run a company. That's incredibly mature. It's necessity. I can't hold everything. I've been learning that for 5 years, but I keep trying anyway. This is me finally accepting I have to choose what I actually hold and let God hold the rest. The business thrived under Jennifer's leadership, better than it had under mine in some ways, because she wasn't trying to hold everything, she was leading while trusting others. At family therapy, all 3 of us together, our therapist reflected on our progress. You've all learned something profound. You don't have to hold each other. Gabrielle, you're learning to be present with your kids without trying to manage their healing. Miguel and Isabella, you're learning to hold your own emotions while letting your dad support without controlling. That's healthy family dynamics, supporting each other without trying to hold each other. It's been the hardest thing I've ever learned, I admitted, letting go of trying to hold my kids' lives, but necessary. The therapist said. Your holding was actually preventing their growth. Letting go allowed them to develop their own ability to hold their lives. 2 years after Carmen died, 5 years after God first spoke to me, I finally understood what he'd meant. You don't need to hold everything. I have already held it. Not just business things, not just manageable things. Everything. My kids' healing, my own grief, our family's future, the business, all of it. My job wasn't to hold everything. It was to do my part, be present, love well, work diligently, while trusting God held what only He could hold. I wrote in my journal, 5 years since God told me I don't need to hold everything. Carmen's death tested whether I truly believed it. Isabella's crisis tested whether I'd learned it. And I'm discovering I have, not perfectly, but progressively. I'm learning to be present without managing, to support without controlling, to love without trying to hold everything. God really has been holding everything. My kids' healing, our families' rebuilding, the business's growth, not by preventing pain or crisis, but by being present in it, providing what we needed through community and grace and His own sustaining presence. I don't need to hold everything. He's already holding it, and that truth is setting me free. The anxiety about holding everything was being replaced with trust that God already was, not easily, not without struggle, but truly. And in that trust, we were discovering healing we couldn't manufacture ourselves. 7 years after God spoke to me, and 4 years after Carmen died, I faced an unexpected test that would reveal how deeply I'd truly learned to let go, or whether I'd simply replaced one form of control with another. I met Rebecca at a grief support group. She'd lost her husband 2 years earlier in a car accident. We became friends first, two widowed parents navigating single parenting and grief. Then slowly, friendship became something more. "I think I'm falling in love with you," I told her after we'd been dating for 6 months. "I love you too," she said. "But Gabriel, I need you to know something. I'm not Carmen. I won't parent like she did. I won't manage the household like she did. If we're going to build a life together, it has to be our way, not me trying to fill Carmen's role." "I understand." "Do you? Because I've watched you with your kids. You've gotten better at not controlling them. But I wonder if you're ready for a partner who won't let you control how she parents, manages things, or lives her life." Her words stung, because they touched a truth I hadn't fully faced. Had I really let go of control? Or had I just learned to manage it better in certain areas while maintaining it in others? Miguel, now 15, was immediately resistant to Rebecca. "You're replacing Mom." "I'm not replacing anyone. Mom was irreplaceable. But Dad deserves to be happy again." "Then why does it feel like you're trying to be our new mom?" "I'm not trying to be your mom. I'm trying to be part of your family as myself." Isabella, now 13 surprisingly, was more open. "I like Rebecca. She's nice, and Dad seems happier. Don't you feel like we're betraying Mom?" "No. Mom would want Dad to be happy. She told me that before she died, that she wanted Dad to find someone else someday." I'd forgotten that conversation. Carmen, knowing she was dying, had explicitly given me permission to remarry. But Miguel felt differently. "I'm not ready for Dad to move on," he told his therapist. "It feels wrong." His therapist helped him process. "Your dad moving forward doesn't erase your mom. Her memory, her impact, her love, those are permanent. Your dad having a new relationship doesn't change that." But Miguel remained resistant, and Rebecca noticed. "Gabriel, we need to talk about Miguel. He'll come around. He just needs time." "No. We need to talk about how you're handling his resistance. You're trying to manage his acceptance, trying to control the timeline of his warming up to me. You need to let him feel what he feels without trying to fix it." "I'm not trying to fix it." "Yes, you are. You make excuses for his coldness. You try to create situations where he has to interact with me. You're managing his emotions instead of letting him process at his own pace." She was right. I'd been trying to hold Miguel's acceptance of Rebecca, trying to control the timeline and outcome instead of letting him process in his own time. "I'm sorry. I'll back off." "It's not about backing off. It's about trusting God with this. You don't need to hold Miguel's acceptance. God's already holding it. Your job is to love both of us and let the relationship develop naturally." We decided to slow down. No talk of marriage yet. No moving in together. Just dating while giving the kids space to adjust. But that meant living with uncertainty about the future. Would Miguel ever accept Rebecca? Would we be able to build a blended family? I didn't know. And not knowing, not controlling the timeline, triggered all my old anxiety. At therapy, Dr. Rodriguez, still my therapist after 7 years, helped me process. "You're experiencing uncertainty anxiety again, the need to know how things will turn out before you move forward. But I need to know if this relationship has a future. If Miguel will never accept Rebecca, we can't get married." "Why not?" Because I can't build a family where my son hates my wife. But you can't control whether Miguel accepts her. You can only control your choices. Do you love Rebecca? Yes. Does she make you happy? Yes. Is she good for you and your family? I think so, yes. Then trust God with Miguel's acceptance. Your job isn't to hold that outcome. It's to make decisions based on what you know now, trusting God with what you don't know. But trusting God with Miguel's acceptance was hard. I wanted to control it, ensure it, guarantee the outcome before moving forward. Rebecca and I had several difficult conversations about my control issues. Gabriel, you're trying to orchestrate this relationship, create perfect moments, manage everyone's emotions, control the progression, but that's not love, that's control. I'm trying to make sure this works, but you can't make sure. Relationships don't come with guarantees. You have to move forward with uncertainty, trusting that if this is supposed to work, God will make it work. Your controlling doesn't help. It suffocates. So what am I supposed to do? Love me. Love your kids. Make decisions based on what you know now. And trust God with outcomes you can't control. That's what it means to be in relationship without trying to hold everything. Her words echoed what I'd been learning for 7 years, but applying it to romantic relationship was harder than applying it to business or parenting. At work, where I was now just a consultant, not CEO, I watched Jennifer navigate a major crisis. A key client threatened to leave. A large project had significant cost overruns. 2 senior employees quit the same week. Old Gabriel would have panicked, taken over, tried to control every aspect of the crisis. New Gabriel watched Jennifer handle it calmly. She didn't try to control every outcome. She made decisions, delegated effectively, and trusted her team. The crisis resolved, not perfectly but adequately. "You're not even tempted to take back control?" Jennifer asked me afterward. "Oh, I'm tempted, but I've learned that my controlling doesn't actually help. You handled that better than I would have because you weren't trying to hold every outcome. You just led well and trusted the team. You taught me that by finally letting go of trying to hold everything in this business." Her words reminded me how far I'd come. 7 years ago, that crisis would have destroyed me with anxiety. Now I could watch someone else handle it without trying to control it. But personal relationships were still my weak spot. I was still trying to hold outcomes with Rebecca and the kids. Miguel's therapist suggested family therapy, all 4 of us together, me, Miguel, Isabella, and Rebecca, to process the potential blended family in a safe space. The first session was brutal. Miguel was angry. "I don't want Rebecca in our family. I don't want a new mom. I don't want Dad to forget about Mom." "I'm not trying to replace your mom," Rebecca said gently. "And your dad hasn't forgotten her. He still loves her. But he's also building a new life, and I'm part of that life. I'm not ready for you to be part of our family. You don't have to be ready, but you do have to be respectful. I'm not going anywhere just because you're not ready." Her boundary was healthy. She wasn't trying to force Miguel to accept her, but she also wasn't going to disappear because he wasn't ready. The therapist helped us navigate. "Miguel, your feelings are valid. You're allowed to not be ready. But your dad is also allowed to move forward with his life. Both things can be true simultaneously." Over the following months, Miguel gradually softened. Not because I tried to control his acceptance, but because I stopped trying to manage it and let Rebecca and Miguel develop their own relationship. I watched them interact at a family barbecue. Miguel made a joke. Rebecca laughed genuinely. He actually smiled at her, the first time I'd seen that. "I think he's starting to accept you," I told Rebecca later, "only because you stopped trying to force it. When you were trying to manage our relationship, he resisted. When you let go, he relaxed enough to actually get to know me." 8 months after we started dating, Rebecca and I discussed marriage seriously. "I want to marry you," I told her, "but I need to know Miguel will be okay with it." "No, you don't. You need to make the decision that's right for us and trust God with Miguel's adjustment. You can't wait for perfect conditions before moving forward. That's you trying to control outcomes again." But what if he never fully accepts you? Then we'll navigate that together. But his acceptance isn't the determining factor of whether we get married. We are. Do you love me? Yes. Do you want to spend your life with me? Yes. Then propose. Stop trying to hold everyone's feelings about it. God's already holding that. She was right. I was letting my need to control everyone's acceptance dictate my decisions, but their feelings weren't mine to hold. I proposed a month later. Simple, private, just us. Yes, she said, crying. But Gabriel, you have to promise me something. Promise me you won't try to control this marriage, that you'll be my partner, not my manager, that you'll trust God to hold our marriage instead of trying to hold it through control. I promise. I'll try. Not try, commit. I commit to letting God hold our marriage, to being your partner, not your manager, to trusting instead of controlling. Telling the kids was complicated. Isabella was excited. I'm happy for you, Dad. Rebecca's great. Miguel was quiet. When? We haven't set a date. We wanted to tell you first. Do I have a choice? About me getting married? No. But about how we build this family? Yes. Your voice matters. Your feelings matter. This isn't me replacing your mum or forcing a new family on you. It's me building a new life and inviting you to be part of that process. What if I can't be happy for you? Then I'll be sad about that. But I'll also trust that God's holding your feelings and our relationship. I'm not going to wait for your happiness to move forward with my life, but I'm also not going to force you to pretend everything's perfect. His therapist later told me that was the right response. You honored his feelings without letting them control your decisions. That's healthy. Planning the wedding triggered all my control tendencies. I wanted everything perfect, wanted to manage every detail, wanted to ensure nothing went wrong. Rebecca stopped me. Gabriel, you're doing it again, trying to control everything. We're hiring a wedding planner. You're going to let her handle details instead of micromanaging. I just want everything to be nice. I know, but your controlling doesn't make things nice. It makes everyone anxious. Trust the planner. Trust me. Trust God. Let go of trying to hold every detail of our wedding. She was right. I was reverting to old patterns under stress. I had to consciously practice letting go. The wedding day arrived. Small ceremony. Close friends and family. The kids stood with us. Isabella as Rebecca's bridesmaid. Miguel as my best man. During the ceremony, Miguel looked uncomfortable. Not angry, but not happy either. Part of me wanted to fix that, to ensure he was okay, but I couldn't. His feelings were his to hold. God was holding him through this transition. I just had to trust that. After the ceremony, Miguel pulled me aside. I'm trying, Dad, to be okay with this. It's hard. I know, thank you for trying. That's all I can ask. I don't hate Rebecca. She's nice. I just miss Mom. Me too. Getting remarried doesn't mean I stopped missing her. Both things are true. That's confusing. It is, but life is confusing sometimes. We hold what we can and trust God with the rest. Rebecca and I didn't honeymoon immediately. We wanted to give the kids time to adjust to her moving in before we left them with Anna, who'd matured significantly and was now reliable. The first months of marriage were an adjustment. Rebecca had different parenting styles than Carmen, different household management approaches, different communication patterns. My instinct was to try to control how she did things, to ensure she understood our way of running the household, but she shut that down immediately. This is our household now, not your household with Carmen that I'm joining. We create our way together. You don't get to dictate how things are done just because you were here first. I'm not trying to dictate. Yes, you are. You're trying to hold how this household runs, but it's not yours to hold alone anymore. It's ours to hold together. That means compromise, not you controlling. She was teaching me what partnership actually meant, not me managing and her complying, but both of us contributing, compromising, creating together. It was hard. I'd been running the household alone for 4 years. Having someone else with equal say felt threatening to my control, but it was also beautiful. Sharing the load, having a partner, not having to hold everything alone. Miguel's relationship with Rebecca slowly improved. Not dramatic change, but gradual warming. He started including her in conversations, asked her opinion occasionally, even laughed at her jokes sometimes. "I think he's accepting this," Rebecca observed, "because I stopped trying to force it, because I let God hold it instead of trying to control his acceptance. You're learning, slowly, but you're learning." 7 years after learning, I didn't need to hold everything. I was still learning. Still discovering new areas where I tried to control instead of trust. Still practicing letting go. I wrote in my journal, 7 years since God told me I don't need to hold everything. Remarriage is testing that in new ways. Can I be in partnership without trying to control my partner? Can I blend a family without trying to manage everyone's feelings? Can I trust God with outcomes I desperately want but can't control? I'm learning the answer is yes, but it requires daily practice. Daily choosing to open my hands instead of clench them. Daily trusting that God's holding what I can't. The journey isn't over, but I'm walking it. Learning to love without controlling, to be in relationship without trying to hold everything, to trust God's already holding my marriage, my family, my life, especially when I can't see how. 7 years in, and I was still learning the same truth. You don't need to hold everything. I have already held it, including my marriage, including my blended family, including outcomes I couldn't control. God was holding it all. I just had to keep practicing trusting that he was. 10 years after God spoke to me, I faced a crisis that would test every layer of trust I'd built. A crisis that involved everyone I loved and everything I'd learned about letting go. It started with a phone call from Miguel's college. He was 20 years old, in his junior year, and I thought he was thriving. But the dean of students had a different story. "Mr. Martinez, Miguel has been struggling. His grades have plummeted. He's missed most of his classes this semester. We found evidence of substance use in his dorm. We're placing him on academic probation and requiring he get evaluated for substance abuse." I felt the familiar panic rising. My son was in crisis, and I hadn't known. I'd been so focused on my new marriage, on giving him space to be independent, that I'd missed the signs. Every controlling instinct screamed to fix this immediately, drive to his college, take over his life, ensure he got help, hold his recovery together through sheer force of will. But I'd learned, painfully over 10 years, that wasn't how it worked. "What does Miguel say about this?" I asked. "He's defensive, insisting everything's fine. But Mr. Martinez, everything's not fine. Your son needs help." I drove to Miguel's college the next day. Rebecca offered to come, but I needed to do this alone. Father and son. I found Miguel in his dorm room, which was a disaster. Empty bottles, trash everywhere. He looked terrible, thin, exhausted, angry. "The school called you," he said flatly. "Of course they did." "Miguel, what's going on?" "Nothing, I'm handling it." "You're not handling it. You're failing your classes, using substances, living in filth. This isn't handling it. This is crisis." "I don't need you to fix this, Dad. I'm an adult." "You are an adult, which means this is your crisis to handle. But I'm your father, which means I'm here to support you, not control you, but support you." What does that even mean? It means I'm not taking over your life. I'm not going to manage your recovery or force you into treatment. But I am going to hold boundaries. You're on my insurance, which means if you want continued coverage, you'll get evaluated and follow treatment recommendations. You're receiving financial support from me, which means if you want that to continue, you'll show me you're actually working on your degree. Those are boundaries, not control. "So, you're blackmailing me into treatment?" "No, I'm letting you choose. You can refuse evaluation and treatment, but then you'll face natural consequences, losing insurance coverage, losing financial support, possibly getting kicked out of school. Those are your choices. I'm not making them for you." He was furious. "I can't believe you're doing this. I love you enough to let you experience consequences. I'm not going to hold your life together when you're tearing it apart. That's your job." I left him with that. Didn't try to force him into my car, didn't drag him to treatment, just held the boundary and left. The drive home was excruciating. Every instinct wanted to go back, take control, ensure he got help. But I couldn't. This was his crisis to navigate. Rebecca found me crying in our bedroom that evening. How did it go? Terrible. He's in bad shape, failing school, using substances. And I had to leave him there instead of fixing it. That's not leaving him. That's respecting that he's an adult who needs to choose his own path. But what if he doesn't choose treatment? What if he destroys his life? Then God will hold him through that too. Your job isn't to prevent all suffering. It's to hold healthy boundaries and trust God with outcomes. I don't know if I can do that. You've been practicing for 10 years. You can do this. Miguel called 3 days later. I got evaluated. They're recommending outpatient treatment for substance abuse and depression. I'm going to do it. I'm proud of you for making that choice. I'm only doing it because you're forcing me with your boundaries. I'm not forcing you. You're choosing treatment over consequences. That's still your choice. Whatever. But Dad, I'm really struggling. Like really struggling. I've been since Mom died and I never dealt with it properly. I know. I'm sorry I didn't see it sooner. It's not your fault. I hid it well, but I need help. Then get help. I'm here to support you, not manage your recovery, but support you through it. Over the following months, Miguel engaged with treatment. Outpatient rehab 3 times a week, weekly therapy, psychiatric medication for depression. He took a semester off school to focus on recovery. It was hard watching him struggle without trying to fix it. He had setbacks, bad days, times when he wanted to quit treatment, but I couldn't hold his recovery for him. That was his and God's. I could only support, hold boundaries and trust. While Miguel was in crisis, Isabella, now 16, faced her own challenge. She'd developed an eating disorder, anorexia that had gone unnoticed until her pediatrician flagged dangerous weight loss. Not again, was my immediate thought. Another child in crisis. Another situation I couldn't control. Isabella was resistant to treatment. I'm fine. The doctor's overreacting. You've lost 20 pounds in 2 months. That's not fine. I'm just eating healthier. You're starving yourself. Izzy, we need to get you help. Unlike Miguel, Isabella was still a minor, which meant I had more authority to enforce treatment. But I'd learned that forced treatment rarely worked if the person wasn't ready. Dr. Chen, who'd treated Isabella years ago, helped us navigate. Isabella needs treatment, but she's 16, old enough to sabotage any treatment she's forced into. You need her buy-in, not just compliance. The family therapy session was intense. Isabella, Miguel, home from college for this, Rebecca and me all processing together. Why is everyone in this family so broken? Isabella asked, crying. Mom died. Miguel's an addict. I can't eat. Dad's a control freak. We're a disaster. We're not a disaster, Rebecca said gently. We're a family dealing with trauma. Everyone's responding to Mom's death in different ways, but we're getting help. That's not disaster. That's health. I don't want to go to treatment, Isabella said. I don't want to be sick again like I was before. But you are sick, I said. And without treatment, you'll get sicker. Izzy, I can't hold your recovery for you, but I can require you get help while you're still a minor. So you're forcing me? I'm using my authority as your parent to ensure you get the care you need. When you're 18, you can refuse treatment if you want. But right now, you're going. She hated me for it, but she went. Intensive outpatient treatment for eating disorders, 3 hours a day, 5 days a week. Managing 2 children in crisis while maintaining my marriage, supporting Rebecca's career and staying healthy myself was overwhelming. I feel like I'm drowning again, I told Dr. Rodriguez, like I'm trying to hold everyone's recovery and I can't. Are you trying to hold their recovery? Or are you holding appropriate boundaries while trusting God holds their actual healing? I don't know the difference anymore. The difference is, holding appropriate boundaries looks like ensuring they're in treatment, maintaining family stability, taking care of yourself. Trying to hold their recovery looks like obsessing over their daily progress, trying to control their emotions, sacrificing your own health to manage theirs. So which am I doing? Some of both. You're holding healthy boundaries with Miguel, but you're trying to hold Isabella's recovery. You need to let go of her healing too, provide the structure she needs while trusting God and her treatment team with the actual recovery. He was right. I was supporting Miguel appropriately, but hovering over Isabella's recovery in ways that weren't helpful. At work, or rather in my consulting role, the company faced another major crisis. A lawsuit threatened significant financial loss. Jennifer asked for my input. What do you think we should do? I think you're the CEO. You don't need my input. You're capable of handling this. But you built this company. Your perspective matters. My perspective is, trust your instincts, consult with lawyers, make the best decision you can, and don't try to control outcomes you can't control. That's all any of us can do. You really have learned to let go, haven't you? I've learned I don't have a choice. Life is too complex, too unpredictable, too beyond my control. All I can do is my part and trust God with the rest. The lawsuit settled, not perfectly, but adequately. The company survived. Jennifer had handled it well without my control. Meanwhile, Rebecca faced her own crisis. Her mother had a stroke, severe. Recovery was uncertain. I need to go to California to help care for her, Rebecca told me, for at least a month, maybe longer. Of course, what do you need? I need you to hold down the household without trying to control how I'm handling my mom's situation from a distance. What does that mean? It means you don't get to tell me how often to call my mom. You don't get to manage my grief or stress. You don't get to try to hold my relationship with my mother. You just support me. I can do that. Can you? Because your instinct is to try to manage difficult situations. I need you to trust that I can handle my mum's care and my emotions about it without your control. She was right. My instinct was to try to help by managing. But that wasn't what she needed. So I supported her practically, handled household management, supported the kids, gave her space to process, without trying to control how she cared for her mother or dealt with her emotions. It was hard. I wanted to fix her stress, ensure she was okay, hold her emotional well-being, but I couldn't. That was hers and God's. I could only love her through it. With Rebecca gone, Miguel in recovery, and Isabella in treatment, I was essentially single-parenting again. And all my old patterns tried to resurface. The house needed to run smoothly. The kids needed support. Everything needed to be held together. But I'd learned I couldn't hold everything. I could do my part, hold what was actually mine to hold, and trust God with the rest. Miguel helped with Isabella. Isabella, despite her eating disorder, was emotionally supportive of Miguel. They were holding each other in ways I couldn't hold them. "We're messed up," Miguel told Isabella one evening, "but at least we're messed up together." "Dad's trying really hard not to control us," Isabella observed. "Yeah, it's weird, but also better. He's actually trusting us to handle our own recovery." Their conversation, which I overheard, reminded me my letting go was teaching them to hold themselves. My not controlling was empowering them. Rebecca's mother died 6 weeks after the stroke. Rebecca was devastated. "I'm coming home," she told me on the phone, crying. "Take whatever time you need. We're okay here." "Are you really okay, or are you just saying that?" "We're really okay. The kids and I are holding things together, not perfectly, but adequately. Come home when you're ready." When Rebecca came home, she was different, grieving, exhausted, fragile in ways I'd never seen. "I need you to hold me," she said, "but not hold my grief. Just hold me." I was learning the distinction. Holding her, being present, supportive, loving, wasn't the same as trying to hold her grief, manage her emotions, or control her healing. Isabella completed her intensive treatment program, not cured. Eating disorders don't cure that quickly, but stabilized. Learning to manage her relationship with food and body image. "I'm proud of you," I told her. "I'm still sick, Dad. This isn't over." "I know, but you're fighting. You're in recovery. That's what matters. You're different than you used to be." When I was little and had anxiety, you tried to fix it. Now, with the eating disorder, you're just supporting me through it. That's better. I'm learning that I can't hold your recovery. Only you and God can. My job is to provide structure and support while you do the hard work. Miguel returned to school after his semester off, still in recovery, still attending AA meetings, still seeing his therapist. I'm scared I'll relapse, he admitted before leaving. You might. Recovery isn't linear. But if you do, you'll get back up and keep fighting. I trust you to handle your own recovery. That's weird to hear from you. Why? Because you used to try to prevent every failure, every struggle. Now you're saying it's okay if I relapse? I'm not saying it's okay, I'm saying it's possible, and I trust you to handle it if it happens. There's a difference between supporting you and trying to hold your recovery for you. 10 years after learning I didn't need to hold everything, I was being tested in every area simultaneously. 2 children in recovery, Rebecca grieving, the company in crisis, and I couldn't control any of it. But I also didn't need to. God was holding it, all of it. My kids' recovery, Rebecca's grief, the company's survival, everything. My job was just to do my part, be present, hold appropriate boundaries, love well, trust God with outcomes I couldn't control. I wrote in my journal, 10 years since God told me I don't need to hold everything. This year has tested that truth in every possible way, and I've discovered it's true. Even when multiple crises hit simultaneously, even when everyone I love is struggling, even when I can't control any outcomes, God's holding it. Not by preventing the struggles, but by being present in them, by providing what we need through community, treatment, grace. I don't need to hold everything. I never did. God's been holding it all along. My attempts to control were just interfering with His holding. Letting go isn't abandoning responsibility. It's finally understanding what my actual responsibilities are versus what only God can hold. And that understanding is transforming everything. 10 years in, facing the hardest year yet, I was finally learning to truly let go. Not because it was easy, but because it was the only way to live. God was holding everything. I just had to keep trusting that He was. 15 years after God spoke to me, I faced a test that would reveal whether I'd truly internalized the truth that I didn't need to hold everything, or whether I'd simply become skilled at appearing like I'd let go, while still subtly controlling. Miguel, now 25, announced he was moving across the country to Seattle. He'd been sober for 5 years, was thriving in his career, and had found a job opportunity too good to pass up. My immediate internal response was panic. What if being far away triggers relapse? What if he needs support and I'm not there? What if something goes wrong? That's amazing, son. I'm proud of you, is what I actually said. After he left, Rebecca looked at me carefully. You're not okay with this. I'm fine. He's an adult. This is what we raised him for, to be independent. Gabriel, I've been married to you for 8 years. I know when you're trying to control your response. Talk to me. I'm terrified. He's 5 years sober, moving away from his support system. What if he relapses? Then he'll handle it. He's not your responsibility to hold anymore. He's an adult who's proven he can manage his recovery. But what if he can't manage it alone? He won't be alone. He'll find new support, new AA meetings, new community. Gabriel, you have to trust that God's holding Miguel even when you can't see it daily. She was right. But releasing Miguel to move across the country felt like releasing him into uncertainty I couldn't monitor or control. At therapy, I still saw Dr. Rodriguez after 15 years. We processed this. You've done well with letting go over the years, but Miguel moving away is triggering your core fear that if you're not close enough to monitor and intervene, something terrible will happen. That's exactly it. When he's close, I can see he's okay. When he's 3,000 miles away, I can't. But you don't need to see that he's okay. You need to trust that God's holding him, whether you can see it or not. That's the final frontier of letting go. Trusting God holds what you can't see. How do I do that? The same way you've done everything for 15 years. Recognize the anxiety. Acknowledge the desire to control. Open your hands. Pray. Trust. Repeat. Miguel moved to Seattle, and I had to daily practice trusting God was holding him, even though I couldn't see it. We video called weekly. He seemed fine, but I found myself analyzing every detail. Did he look tired? Was he stressed? Was that a sign of relapse? Rebecca caught me. You're trying to monitor his well-being from 3,000 miles away. I'm just checking in. You're trying to hold his recovery through surveillance. That's control, not support. So what am I supposed to do? Not care if he's okay? Care without controlling. Ask how he is. Listen to his answer. Trust that if he's struggling, he'll reach out. Trust that God's holding him. Stop trying to detect problems so you can fix them before they happen. She was right. I was trying to hold Miguel's well-being through hypervigilance, but that wasn't my job. Never had been. Isabella, now 21, faced her own transition. She'd struggled with eating disorder recovery throughout college, but had graduated and was starting graduate school. I'm nervous about grad school, she admitted. The stress might trigger relapse. What's your plan for managing that? I found a therapist near campus. I'm joining a recovery support group. I'm going to check in with my dietitian weekly. That sounds like a solid plan. I'm proud of you for thinking ahead. You're not going to try to manage this for me? No, this is yours to manage. I trust you to handle it. That's really different from when I was 16 and you forced me into treatment. You were 16 and not capable of making those decisions yourself. Now you're 21 and you've proven you can manage your recovery. My job changed from enforcing treatment to trusting your ability to seek it. I appreciate that. It would be easy to relapse and hide it if you were hovering. Your trust actually makes me want to stay accountable. Her words revealed something profound. My control had never helped my children. My trust was what empowered them. At work, though I was barely involved anymore, the company faced a decision about selling to a larger corporation. Jennifer, still CEO, asked for my input. What do you think we should do? I think this is your decision, not mine. You've been running this company for a decade. You know what's best, but you built it. Your opinion matters. My opinion is I trust your judgment. If you think selling is right, sell. If you think staying independent is right, stay independent. I'll support whatever you decide. You really don't care? I care, but I don't need to control it. You're the CEO. This is yours to hold, not mine. She decided to sell. The financial outcome was significant, enough that I could fully retire if I wanted. What will you do with your time? Rebecca asked. I don't know. For 40 years, my identity has been tied to holding things together. Business, family, everything. Who am I if I'm not holding anything? You're Gabriel, husband, father. Friend, child of God, your identity isn't in what you hold, it's in who you are. Her words cut deep. Had I been defining myself by what I held together? Was my entire identity built on being the person who controlled and managed everything? At church, Pastor David, who'd been my spiritual director for 15 years, helped me process. You're facing retirement identity crisis, but you're also facing spiritual transformation. God's been teaching you for 15 years that you don't need to hold everything. Now he's asking, can you be valuable without holding anything? Can you find identity in simply being his child instead of in your accomplishments or control? I don't know. I've spent my whole life believing I was valuable because I held things together. What if I'm not valuable when I'm not holding anything? That's the lie you've been believing. Your value never came from what you held. It came from being loved by God, held by God. You've spent 15 years learning to let God hold everything. Now you're learning to let God hold you. His words triggered something deep. I'd been learning to trust God held everything external, business, family, outcomes. But had I trusted God held me, my worth, my identity, my value? Or had I been holding those myself through achievement, control, and being needed? Over the following months, I faced what felt like an existential crisis. Retired, kids grown and independent, not needed to hold anything together, and I felt lost, like I didn't know who I was, apart from being the person who held everything. Rebecca was patient. This is part of the journey. You're discovering that letting go of control means letting go of identity based on control. It's uncomfortable, but it's necessary. At therapy, Dr. Rodriguez helped me reframe. You're grieving the loss of an identity you've held your whole life. The identity of being Atlas, the person who holds everything up. But that identity was always false. You were never meant to hold everything. God was. You're grieving a role you were never supposed to have. So who am I if I'm not the person who holds everything? You're Gabriel, beloved Son of God. That's it. That's your entire identity. Everything else, father, husband, businessman, friend, those are roles you play. But your core identity is simply being loved by God. That feels insufficient. Because you've been trying to earn value through holding everything. But God's love isn't earned, it's given. You're valuable because you exist, not because you hold things together. This was the deepest level of letting go I'd faced. Not just letting go of control over external things, but letting go of deriving identity and worth from that control. I started spending significant time in prayer and contemplation, not trying to accomplish anything. Not trying to hold anything, just being present with God. It was excruciating at first. My mind wanted to plan, manage, control something. But I practiced just sitting, just being, just receiving God's love without earning it through performance. Slowly, something shifted. I started experiencing peace I'd never known. Not peace because circumstances were good. Peace because I was finally resting in God holding me, instead of me holding everything. Miguel called one evening crying, "Dad, I relapsed. I used again. I'm so ashamed." Every instinct wanted to take over, fix it, fly to Seattle, ensure he got back into treatment, hold his recovery together. But I asked, "What do you need from me?" "I don't know. I just needed to tell you. I'm sorry you're struggling. Have you reached out to your sponsor?" "Not yet. I'm scared." "What are you scared of? That I'll lose everything I've built? That 5 years of sobriety means nothing because I relapsed? One relapse doesn't erase 5 years of recovery. You know that. What did you do when you realized you'd used?" "I immediately threw out the rest. Called my roommate to come home. I didn't keep using." That's recovery, Miguel. Relapse doesn't mean you're not in recovery. How you respond to it does. You stopped, you're calling me. Those are healthy responses. I'm terrified I'll spiral back into full addiction. That's possible. But you have tools now you didn't have before. And God's holding you even in relapse. Your job is to get back up and keep fighting. After we hung up, I sat with the anxiety of not being able to control Miguel's recovery, not being able to fly to Seattle and ensure he got help. But I prayed, God, I can't hold Miguel's recovery. I can't prevent relapse. I can't control whether he stays sober, but you can hold him. You are holding him. Help me trust that. Miguel got back into intensive outpatient treatment, increased his AA meeting attendance, worked with his sponsor. He didn't spiral, he recovered. I'm proud of how you handled your relapse, I told him months later. You didn't try to fix it for me. That helped. I had to take responsibility for my own recovery instead of you managing it. I wanted to fix it. Every parental instinct wanted to take over. But you didn't. You trusted me to handle it. That trust helped me believe I could handle it. Isabella faced her own crisis. A romantic relationship ended badly, triggering eating disorder relapse. She lost dangerous amounts of weight quickly. But unlike when she was 16, I didn't force treatment. She was 21. This was hers to manage. Izzy, I'm concerned about your weight loss. I know. I'm struggling, but I'll get help. When? When I'm ready. It took everything in me not to demand she get help immediately, not to control her treatment timeline, not to try to hold her recovery. But I'd learned forced treatment rarely worked. She had to choose it herself. 2 weeks later, she called. I'm going back to intensive treatment. I need help. I'm proud of you for making that choice. It's scary. But scarier than relapse is losing my life to this disorder. I can't do that. You're brave, and I trust you to fight this. Rebecca and I celebrated our 10th anniversary, a decade of marriage, blending families, learning to partner without control. "You've changed so much since we met," she observed. "How? You used to try to hold everything. Now you trust things are held. You used to need control to feel safe. Now you're comfortable with uncertainty." I wouldn't say comfortable, more like resigned to it. No, it's more than resignation, it's trust. You've genuinely learned to trust God's holding everything. That's beautiful. 15 years after God first spoke to me, I was finally living like I believed it. Not perfectly, not without struggle, but truly. I didn't need to hold everything. God had already held it, my business, my children, their recovery, my marriage, my identity, my worth, everything. And in letting go, fully, finally, deeply, I discovered the freedom and peace I'd been desperately searching for through control all those years. I wrote in my journal, 15 years since God told me I don't need to hold everything. I thought I'd learned that lesson years ago. But I'm discovering there are always deeper levels of letting go of control over circumstances, letting go of control over people, letting go of identity based on control, letting go of worth earned through holding everything, each level harder than the last, but each level bringing deeper peace. I finally understand what God meant. He's not just holding everything external, He's holding me. My worth isn't in what I hold, it's in being held by Him. That's the ultimate freedom, not just trusting God holds everything, but trusting God holds me. 15 years in, and I was still learning to let go. But this time, I was letting go of the deepest thing, the belief that my value came from holding anything at all. 20 years after God spoke to me, in that dark church sanctuary, I found myself back in the same pew where it all began. 55 years old, retired, kids grown, life completely different than it had been 2 decades ago. So much had changed. I'd gone from a control freak having a panic attack to someone who'd learned, slowly, painfully, beautifully, to trust that God was holding everything. Miguel was 30, married, living in Seattle, 10 years sober. He'd built a successful career in tech and was sponsoring other men in recovery. The son I'd feared would destroy his life had become someone who helped others rebuild theirs. Isabella was 26, finishing her PhD in psychology, specializing in eating disorder treatment. Still in recovery herself, but using her struggle to help others. The daughter I'd tried to control into healing had found healing by taking ownership of her own recovery. Rebecca and I had been married 15 years. Our marriage had taught me what partnership actually meant, not managing or being managed, but 2 whole people building a life together while trusting God held what they couldn't. Ina, my sister, was thriving. 15 years after I'd stopped enabling her, she'd built a stable life, career, marriage, financial independence. The person I'd kept dependent by holding everything for her had grown strong by learning to hold her own life. My mother had passed away 5 years ago, peacefully, surrounded by family. Her death hadn't devastated me like Carmen's had. I'd learned that grief and peace could coexist, that God held even death. The business I'd built had been sold. The money from the sale meant I'd never have to work again. But more importantly, it meant I'd built something that didn't need me to hold it together. The ultimate proof that my controlling had never been necessary. Sitting in that pew, I reflected on the entire 20-year journey. From that desperate night when I'd first heard God say, "You don't need to hold everything. I have already held it," to now. 2 decades of learning what that actually meant. It hadn't been a linear journey. I'd learned and forgotten and relearned. I'd made progress and regressed. I'd thought I'd mastered letting go, only to discover new areas where I was still trying to control. But the trajectory was clear. 20 years ago, I'd been trying to hold everything, business, family, everyone's problems, everyone's emotions, everyone's outcomes. The weight had nearly crushed me. Now, I wasn't trying to hold anything except what was actually mine to hold. My own choices, my own responses, my own relationship with God. Everything else, other people's choices, circumstances beyond my control, outcomes I couldn't dictate, I'd learned to trust God was holding. My phone rang. Miguel calling. "Dad, I have news. Sarah's pregnant. You're going to be a grandfather." The news filled me with joy, and also immediate anxiety. What if something goes wrong? What if they need help? What if I need to hold them through pregnancy and newborn care? But I caught myself. Asked the question I'd been practicing for 20 years. Is this mine to hold? That's wonderful. Congratulations. How are you both feeling? Excited, terrified. Sarah's anxious about staying sober during pregnancy. She's in recovery too, as you know. What kind of support does she need? She's already connected with her OB and her sponsor. We're doing this. But Dad, I'm scared. What if I'm a terrible father? What if my addiction history means I can't parent well? Miguel, you don't have to have it all figured out before becoming a father. None of us do. You'll learn as you go. And God's holding your baby even now. Your job is to show up and love your child, not to hold everything perfectly. After we hung up, Rebecca asked, "How are you feeling about becoming a grandfather?" "Anxious, excited, trying not to control how they parent or what they need from us." That's growth. 20 years ago, you would have already been planning how to manage their entire parenting journey. I know, but I've learned their parenting journey isn't mine to hold. God's holding their baby. My job is to be a supportive grandfather, not a controlling one. The men's group I'd led for years asked me to share my testimony one more time. 20 years after learning to let go. Standing before them, I shared the complete journey, the panic attack that started it all. Hearing God's voice, the painful process of learning to release control, Carmen's death, the kids' crises, remarriage, every test that had revealed whether I truly trusted God was holding everything. 20 years ago, I came here desperate and broken. Trying to hold everything had nearly killed me. God spoke words that changed my life. "You don't need to hold everything. I have already held it." I thought that meant life would get easier. It didn't. It meant I'd learned to navigate difficulty without trying to control it, to face crisis without trying to manage every outcome, to love people without trying to hold their lives for them. I shared about Miguel's addiction and recovery, Isabella's eating disorder and healing, Carmen's death, the business sale, retirement, becoming a grandfather soon. None of it went how I would have planned if I'd been holding everything, but all of it was held by God. Not held the way I would have held it, preventing pain, controlling outcomes, ensuring specific results, but held in ways that brought growth, healing, and transformation I never could have orchestrated through control. One man raised his hand. "How do you trust God's holding everything when you can't see how? When circumstances look like everything's falling apart?" That's the faith part. I can't see how God's holding everything, but I've watched him do it for 20 years. I've seen him hold my son through addiction when I couldn't, hold my daughter through eating disorder when I couldn't, hold my family through my wife's death when I couldn't. He's proven he holds everything whether I see it or not. So when I can't see it, I remember all the times he's proven he does. Another man asked, "But doesn't letting go mean being passive, not trying to fix problems?" No, letting go means doing your part without trying to do God's part. I got Miguel help when he needed it, but I didn't try to control his recovery. I supported Isabella's treatment, but I didn't try to manage her healing. I worked diligently in my business, but I didn't try to control every outcome. Active engagement plus trust in God's holding, that's what letting go actually looks like. It's not passivity, it's wisdom. After the meeting, dozens of men shared their own struggles with trying to hold everything. Most were where I'd been 20 years ago, exhausted, overwhelmed, convinced everything depended on them. I needed to hear that story. One young father told me, "I'm drowning trying to hold everything for my family. I thought being a good father meant controlling everything, but you've shown me it means trusting God while doing my part." An executive shared, "I've been micromanaging my company into the ground, trying to hold every outcome. Your story helped me see that's not leadership, it's fear." An older man, probably 70, said with tears, "I've spent my whole life trying to hold everything. I'm exhausted, and I'm running out of time to learn what you learned. Thank you for showing me it's not too late to let go." Their testimonies reminded me why God had taken me through this journey, not just to free me, but to help others find the same freedom. At home, Rebecca and I had a meaningful conversation about legacy. "What do you want people to remember about you?" she asked. "I don't know. 20 years ago, I would have said I wanted to be remembered as successful, as someone who held everything together, as indispensable. But now, I want to be remembered as someone who learned to trust, who let go, who showed that God really does hold everything when we stop trying to do it ourselves. That's a beautiful legacy. You've taught Miguel and Isabella that. You've taught me that. You've taught hundreds of men in your group. That's significant impact. But I failed so much, controlled so much, damaged people through my need to manage everything. But you learned, you changed, you grew. That's the legacy, not perfection but transformation, showing that it's possible to change patterns that have dominated your whole life. Miguel and Sarah's baby, my first grandchild, was born 6 months later. A boy they named Gabriel, after me. Holding baby Gabriel for the first time, I felt overwhelming love mixed with familiar anxiety. Will I try to control how they parent? Will I be able to be a grandfather without managing? But I also felt peace. God was holding this baby, not me. My job was to love him, support his parents, and trust God with everything else. "He's perfect," I told Miguel, handing back his son. "I'm terrified," Miguel admitted. "What if I mess this up?" "You will mess some things up. Every parent does. But you'll also do many things right. And God's holding Gabriel through both your successes and failures. Your job isn't to be a perfect father. It's to be present, loving, and trusting. That's what you've been teaching me for years. I'm trying to apply it to parenting. You'll do great because you're not trying to hold everything. You're doing your part and trusting God with the rest." Isabella got engaged around the same time, to a man named David, who understood eating disorder recovery because his sister had struggled with it. "I'm getting married, Dad," she told me, glowing. "I never thought I'd be healthy enough for marriage. But God healed me, not by removing the eating disorder, but by teaching me to manage it while trusting He holds my healing. I'm so happy for you. David's a good man." "He is. And Dad, thank you for letting go of trying to control my recovery. If you'd kept managing it, I never would have learned to manage it myself. Your letting go is what enabled my healing." Her words brought tears. The hardest thing I'd ever done, letting go of trying to hold my children, had been exactly what they needed. At church, Pastor David asked me to preach one Sunday, 20 years after learning to let go, sharing what God had taught me. I stood before the congregation and shared my testimony one more time. But this time, with 20 years of evidence that God really did hold everything. 20 years ago, I sat in this building desperate and broken. God spoke words that changed my life. "You don't need to hold everything. I have already held it." I spent the next 20 years learning what that meant, learning to let go of control, learning to trust, learning that God really was holding everything, not the way I would hold it, but better. I shared about the panic attack, the breakdown, hearing God's voice, about learning to delegate at work, about Carmen's cancer and death, about the kids' struggles and recovery, about remarriage and blended family, about retirement and identity crisis, about becoming a grandfather. Every stage of life has tested whether I truly believed God was holding everything, and every stage has proven He was, not by preventing pain or controlling outcomes, but by being present in difficulty. By providing what was needed through community, grace, and His own sustaining presence. I've learned that the only thing I actually need to hold is trust. Trust that God's holding everything else. I closed with an invitation. If you're exhausted from trying to hold everything, God's inviting you to let go. Not to be irresponsible or passive, but to do your part while trusting He's doing His part. You don't need to hold everything. You never did. God has already held it, all of it. He's holding it right now. Your job is to trust that He is. After the service, the line of people wanting to talk stretched through the sanctuary. Most shared their own struggles with trying to hold everything, but one conversation stood out. A young man, probably 30, told me, "10 years ago I heard you speak about letting go. I thought it sounded nice but impossible. But watching your life over the past decade, seeing you actually live it through your wife's death, your kids' struggles, all of it, that's convinced me it's possible. Thank you for showing us what trusting God actually looks like in real life." His words captured what I hoped my life demonstrated, that letting go wasn't just theology, it was livable, that trusting God held everything wasn't just nice words, it was a way of life that brought peace, freedom, and transformation. That evening I sat in the Adoration Chapel, my refuge for 20 years, the place where God had first spoken, the place I'd returned to thousands of times when anxiety threatened to overwhelm. "Thank you," I prayed, "for teaching me I don't need to hold everything, for holding me through 20 years of learning that, for holding Carmen through cancer and death, for holding my kids through addiction and eating disorders and grief, for holding Rebecca and me through blended family challenges, for holding the business through crises, for holding everything I tried so desperately to hold myself. I finally understand. My job was never to hold everything, it was to trust the one who does. And that trust has given me life, real life, abundant life, free life I never could have known through control." I wrote in my journal one final time about this journey. 20 years since God told me I don't need to hold everything because He's already holding it. 20 years of learning to trust that truth, learning to let go, learning that control isn't strength, trust is. Learning that my worth isn't in what I hold, it's in being held by God. I'm not perfect at it. I still try to control sometimes. Still feel anxious when I can't see how things will work out. Still want to hold things that aren't mine to hold. But I've learned to recognize those patterns and redirect. To open my hands instead of clenching them. To pray instead of plan. To trust instead of control. And I've discovered that God really does hold everything. My business thrived when I stopped trying to hold it. My children healed when I stopped trying to manage their recovery. My marriage flourished when I stopped trying to control it. My life became free when I stopped trying to hold it all together. I don't need to hold everything. I never did. God has always been holding it. My attempts to control were just interfering with His holding. That's what 20 years has taught me. The freedom I was desperately searching for through control existed all along in surrender. The peace I was trying to achieve through managing everything was available in trusting God managed it all. I don't need to hold everything. God has already held it. That simple truth, spoken to me 20 years ago in a dark church, has transformed everything. My relationships, my work, my parenting, my identity, my entire life. I'm not who I was 20 years ago. That man was drowning, exhausted, convinced everything depended on him. I'm now at peace, resting, trusting God holds everything. That transformation didn't happen overnight. It took 20 years of daily practice, daily choosing trust over control, daily opening my hands, daily remembering God's holding it. But it was worth it, worth every painful moment of letting go, worth every test of trust, worth 20 years of learning, because now I'm free. Free from the exhaustion of trying to hold everything, free from the anxiety of believing everything depends on me, free from the prison of control. God has held everything all along. I've spent 20 years learning to trust that He has, and that trust, that simple, profound trust, has given me life I never knew existed. I don't need to hold everything. God has already held it. That truth set me free. As I closed my journal and prepared to leave the chapel, I felt profound gratitude. Not that my life had been easy, it hadn't. Not that I'd mastered letting go, I hadn't. But that God had been faithful. For 20 years, through every test, every crisis, every moment of doubt, He'd proven He really was holding everything. I didn't need to hold it, I never did. God had already held it, all of it, always. And that truth, that simple, transformative truth, was everything I needed. 20 years later, I finally understood. And that understanding had set me free.